With that, I hope to go forward a healthy relationship for all of us. And I thank you for what you do.
Thank you, Chuck. I hope so too. OFT President Jake Knudsen, are you here? Yep. Hi, good evening.
So today, I just want to get up and talk a little bit about Article 8.2.2, the discussion on the face mask requirement. My own experience with COVID is one I don't believe to be a unique one, excuse me. I believe we've all gone through this together and we've all suffered. When schools initially closed in March 2020 and the district asked for volunteers to come in and pack lunches to go out to any child or teenager who needed one, I came in and I packed lunches. We wore masks and we wore gloves. When summer school came around in summer of 2020, I chose to teach a summer school class. I double masked a KN95 with a 3-layer cloth mask. The students wore the standard 3-layer cloth mask. Some chose to wear gloves, but we still had summer school. After the beginning of the following school year, the district asked if teachers would consider hybrid instruction before requiring us to engage in hybrid instruction. I offered my students the opportunity to come in and learn. Very few took the offer, but we still wore our masks and we engaged in academic experience. During that time, I expected none of my colleagues to do the same or anything they were uncomfortable with. What I was doing was my choice. In fact, when negotiating the MOU with the district, I was ferociously against any return to campus for the 2020-21 school year. I wasn't taking that stance for myself. I took that stance because I believed it was the right thing to do to protect everyone. No one should be forced into a dangerous situation. All people should have the right to be safe. During that time, around December of 2020, my dear Fred's dad, who are brothers, became ill with COVID and was put on a ventilator, and he died shortly after. And he wasn't just my friend's father. His name was Todd Hoffmeister, and I spent a lot of time with his family. A few weeks after that, my own father became ill with COVID, and he really fought going to the hospital because I believe he was probably scared, and so was I. Thankfully, he did go to the hospital, but he continued to get worse, and at one point, while sitting at my desk in my classroom, I called the hospital to see how my father was doing. And the doctor told me that he was being prepped to be taken to the ICU and that I should call him. The survival rate is 10% once you're put on a ventilator. And it was probably the most devastating moment of my life. And I still have a hard time reflecting on it. Thankfully, before he was intubated, his condition stopped deteriorating and he did not need to be placed on a ventilator. And he came home about a week later. That's my relationship with COVID. And again, I don't think it's a unique experience. I know a lot of people have similar stories. I have respect for all the parents who have spoken at previous board meetings who are doing what they believe to be the best for their children. Even if we disagree about masks in schools, it's admirable and respectable that they come and fight for what they believe in. Who could criticize them for that? I may disagree with what happens in the boardroom, but I don't disagree that people should stand up for their children. We, the teachers, did a lot of work and research when we negotiated multiple MOUs with the district. And because we do hear the voices of parents and students, we did eventually agree to come back before the end of the 2021 school year. We do love our students and respect their parents. I'm sure Dr. Morris can remember every time we thought we had something dialed in, the public health orders would change and we went in circles for what felt like months figuring out what was best for our district. I can see how on the outside looking in, that's confusing for parents. I don't believe any of us love wearing masks. We want so very badly for the past of being to return, but we're not there yet. We've been feeling COVID burnout for well over a year, but we can't let our guards down, so we don't. We put our faith into federal, state, and local health organizations, which all support the wearing of masks indoors. We know we are in harm's way, but we still love and want to do our jobs. We have the right to a safe workplace, not only guaranteed by our MOU, but also our employment agreement with the district. At this point in time, we believe students not wearing masks indoors is an unsafe workplace. Please uphold the wearing of masks indoors at our schools. Let us continue to do whatever we can to prevent people from suffering from the tragedy of losing loved ones. The tragedies the pandemic has placed on people's lives. Let's keep wearing the masks until we're completely certain it's safe to take them off. And when that time comes, we will all be excited to participate in that event. Now is not that time. So please continue to support and enforce the mask mandate.
Thank you, Jake. Now we'll go back to the agenda as presented. 6.1 is our update on development project. And I believe, thank you. I think we are going to get the presentation first and then open up for public comments. And are they seeing this on the TV? Is that okay?
You can view this on the TV, and there are also hard copies of this presentation available. I would like to turn this over to David Saldani, our attorney, who's been working with us on this project.
Thank you very much. Can everybody hear me?
There you go. Step a little
Okay.
bit closer.
Let me get closer.
Okay.
First of all, I just want to thank the board for accommodating my schedule tonight. I do have to run to another board meeting. I appreciate the consideration and putting the item first. Again, this is to come back to this board with an update on where we are in all of this development process. And we do have, I think, a graphic that we're going to show to help folks follow along. And we'll start a little bit in the past before we get to the present. So as you can see from this graph, which I believe is available in hard copy there outside this room, after the 7-Eleven committee met and discussed different options for the property, there was a recommendation made to the board with respect to this district office. And, you know, at that point, the board has a lot of discretion under the surplus property laws. The board could have opted to sell the property, in which case it would have to go to the highest bidder through a public bid sale. Instead, the board desired to retain ownership over this property and pursue a lease option instead. Regardless of the approach, the board has a fiduciary duty with respect to this property. It was paid for with taxpayer money. Built into the surplus property statutes is this concept of a very detailed process that you have to go through, with the idea being to maximize the return on any property that is surplus. That's built into the statute. So, consistent with that intent, there was a request for proposals that was pushed out, and there were a few respondents. That was in about February of 2019. The selection was ultimately made in June. At that time, I believe they were called the Playground Group. They're now known as SVS LLC. In May of 2020, as a next step, the board sought assistance from a real estate consultant to assist with this process. And in doing so, the board looked at a company that's typically used by school districts in Ventura County and has a track record. And in fact, the same company was involved in the district office relocation in a neighboring district here in Ventura. That's the Sage Realty Group. So that contract was entered into in about May of 2020. Following that, the district entered into what's called an exclusive right to negotiate agreement. And that's a specific type of contract. And what that contract does is it grants an exclusive right to the developer that was selected to pursue and work towards a viable development proposal, ultimately culminating in a land contract such as a lease, of course, one that is acceptable to the board. And the period of negotiation through this agreement was extended. There was some delay during COVID in terms of processing from the city. So this ERN remains in effect through next month, through January of 2022. Again, fast forwarding a little bit further, we get to November 2021, which was the Planning Commission concept review. And that's a hearing that's, again, a required part of the ERN. It's required for the development process. And the purpose of that hearing is to get community feedback from not only the public, but members of the Planning Commission on the specific concept that was submitted. And by all accounts, there was a lot of feedback, and it was very specific feedback, not only from members of the public, but also from the planning commissioners themselves. And as we know, feedback is always helpful and instructive. So here are the takeaways now reporting back from that meeting, having attended that myself with others. Number one takeaway, there just doesn't appear to be support for a large hotel. The second takeaway, there is a very strong desire for community involvement early and often through this development process. I would also note, and this is not an exhaustive list, but things that we heard over and over again were concerns around water, traffic, and there's a historical component of the site, and we heard that from a number of folks there. In addition to that, there were a number of individuals who shared alternative development ideas and concepts. So that takes us to next slide. So where we're at now, in the coming months, the board will continue to work with its consultants to determine next steps and future plans. Important to note that any board consideration of a lease agreement or an extension of the exclusive right to negotiate or anything of that sort of necessity will be agendized. And that discussion will happen at a properly noticed, duly called public meeting of the board. That's a legal requirement. So when there is something to talk about along those lines, it will be agendized and it will be discussed. The public will have a right to weigh in on those issues as well. So that is where we are at. I would say stay tuned in the coming weeks and months for future agenda items on this topic, but this is where we are at today, and I'm happy to take any questions from the board if there are any.
So you're heading out to another meeting,
I
right?
have to run.
Okay. So
Sorry.
I think unless there's something specific, we'll let you go and we'll do our public comments on this section. Is that,
Thank you so much.
thank you for being here. We will have enough time, it looks, to get through these. I do want those who are here to speak on this topic to know that every member of the board did watch the Planning Commission meeting. It was available on video after our meeting. And so your comments were heard. We appreciate that commitment. And I guess we'll start. There are some people who have general comments. I assume that's about something else. So I will be getting to those after this topic. And again, if you'll come up and you'll have we'll set a timer for 3 minutes. And if you could speak directly into the microphone so everyone can hear you. The first person is Richard Lobley. And next up will be William Garther.
Hi, thanks for being here. I just wanted to add my voice to those who are against this project as it is. If you saw the video of the meeting, 2 weeks ago, you saw that the development company pretty much lost all credibility, I think. And I think there are lots of things to be done with that property. I don't think anybody is against doing something there, but it's definitely on this project. And I'd just like to give 2 or 3 quotes from the meeting that came from one of the commission members at the end, where he said, "It's concerning to me that I don't know why we have chosen this developer." That's one. "I don't have any sense that we have aspired to excellence in the design or planning of this. That's another. And there was no inspiration tonight. It was just like, we'll squeeze this in here and that in here. Where's the magic? So I'm just wanting to express my voice that I think you should seriously look about doing something else. But there's all sorts of things to be done in that property, and I think people are willing to do it. So thank you.
Hi, I'm William Gartner. Thank you for letting me speak tonight. My understanding of the deal is that this would be a 50-year deal of $250,000 a year. If you were to take a Matilaha personal finance class, you'd realize the net present value of that cash flow is less than $6 million. So that's what you're selling the property for. I think that's substantially less than it's worth. So even whether you want to do a hotel, whether you want to do a parking lot, or whether you want to do anything, it's just a bad deal. So I would just keep the property for now, look for better deals. I think the ones that you got were just not going to work. And so that's what I would think about, is if you really want money for the school, this is not the deal to do. Thank you so much.
William, I just want to make 2 points. There's no sale of the property. It would be a lease that we're looking for, and the recent appraisal of a lease on the property would be closer to $750,000 a year. Sorry. So is this? All right. Sorry about that. Next up is Bradley Schnell, and after that would be Vaughn Montgomery.
Hello. Okay. Good evening, members of the board and the greater community of Ojai. My name is Bradley Schnell. I'm a member of SVS Dev LLC, the development team that was awarded the winner of the school district's request for proposals to redevelop the 414 Ojai Avenue. SVS Dev, I'm going to take this off. SVS Dev was chosen by the district as having the most qualified development team.
Bradley, I'm sorry, I'm going to stop you for just a second. So because you're away from others and you're speaking at the mic, I'm going to let you do that, but I need to explain that to the audience because we've been very clear about the mask, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
SVS Dev was chosen by the district as having the most qualified development team, the best proposal for the redevelopment of the site, which needs extensive renovation and restoration, once again, to make it a usable part of Ojai's neighborhood fabric. The next steps following our award was for the district and the developer to enter into an exclusive negotiations and to establish a ground lease. Here I am tonight reiterating our desire and intention to complete these negotiations and to execute on a successful redevelopment of the site. I would also like to note that we have completed everything that has been required of us by our agreement. We have worked diligently in good faith to do everything that was asked of us and to abide by everything that the board's consulted and has additionally instructed. We were not consulted tonight on this presentation. That said, we welcome this rare opportunity to speak to the board directly, albeit in public comment, as we have been instructed to this point to speak only through your consultant and only the consultant. I would also like to correct some misinformation. In particular, the development proposal which was presented to the community thus far was only intended for initial discussion outlined for the purposes of the highest and best use for the project, which means the maximum rents payable to the district. And it's much more than what the previous gentleman said. This was a requirement in the terms of the RFP and issued by the school district. The sole intention of the document was to initiate discussions and to use this as a way to analyze the planning authority with the planning authority as we work through the building entitlement process. We did not wish to hold the planning hearing in the manner that it was held. We believe that it was outside of the process of the exclusive right to negotiate and premature based on the previous lack of community and board engagement. Our goal has been to have an open process to build a project that is right for the community and for the school district. Part of this process, the key part of this process of our plan has been to hold public workshops and forums in order to come up with the best solutions together to create a project that makes both financial sense and general benefit to the community. This process has not yet even occurred. We're just getting started. We have more than enough creative minds in Ojai to create something wonderful here, something that we are all proud of, and something that benefits all. I would urge the board to reject making any decisions or come to any conclusions tonight on the development plan. It is simply too soon to make these sorts of decisions. To start, I would like to host a workshop next month and allow for an effective process of community engagement to take place. As we've been requested numerous times in the past, ideally, we would also
Bradley,
become
I'm
a
sorry,
board
your
agenda
3
and
minutes are
develop
up.
this project as a standing agenda item.
Thank you. Please put your mask back on.
I'm almost done.
I'm sorry, who are you? Bradley, it's hard for me to see.
I'm speaking
It's-
for Larry. I'm just.
I'm sorry, I can't do that. I need to just have each person on there. So is Vaughn Montgomery?
Hello, my name is Vaughn Montgomery, and my name is Vaughn Montgomery, and I've got a couple kids in the Ojai Unified School District, and I also run a nonprofit community art space in Miners Oaks called Greater Goods. I spoke at the Planning Commission meeting a couple weeks ago, and mostly just wanted to show up tonight to thank the board for listening to community feedback. I think it's critical. It's hard for many of us who live in this town to take it in good faith from the developers when they talk about wanting to serve the community and have an integrated kind of powwow on what could be good ideas to do this, when it's clear there's been a lot of agreements on the table for a while now, and I've never been aware of any of that kind of stuff, and I'm fairly plugged in this community. It feels a little bit like they just sense the outrage at the idea of a 200-room hotel in the midst of a drought and the midst of gentrification and congestion and all these serious issues facing our community. To present a 200-room hotel in the heart of town is a bit of a slap in the face to many of the working class folks who have called this place home for a long time. That being said, I do agree with Bradley, who just spoke, that there's so many good minds in this community, from architects to farmers to engineers, financiers, all kinds of people that could be called on to find a win-win situation that fits for OUSD and supports the important work that you all are doing, and also is something that's appropriate for this community. I would like to throw out a little bit of an idea that every school in this area is oversized, and that's a good problem to have. Low enrollment is only natural when birth rates are declining. People used to have 5 or 6 kids. Now people have 1 or 2. So it's only natural that we have a lot of space in our schools. We also have an abundance of private schools here. And with new folks moving to town with more money, guess what? They're going to send them, a lot of them, to the private schools. But there's a golden opportunity to serve people who've been in this town for a long time, starting with the Chumash folks. Families have been in this town for multiple generations who are still low income and could use some affordable housing. To create a technical school or some type of trade school on the giant Chaparral building property. So there's ways we could have a diverse, sustainable, creative solution to this problem that serves both the community and the OUSD's financial needs, and integrate something that's sustainable and makes sense for this little valley. And the very last thing that would be is a 200-room hotel. So let's go back to the drawing board and walk all this back in a decent way that honors the time put in so far, but also honors the clear message from this community that we do not want this, and to turn something that belongs to the people into something that's exclusive for business is just inappropriate. Thank you for your time.
Next up is, oh, sorry. Stacy Jones and then Linda Taylor.
Hi, I'm Stacy Jones. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. I'm a downtown business owner. I don't like speaking in public, so I'm going to be kind of nervous. I've decided that. I don't know if you've all noticed the help wanted signs up and down the main drag and in all the places that we have. Finding people is really hard to make life livable. I'm personally working just about 7 days a week without fail. I can't, and I'm not the only one. It's not because of any, well, I don't know, but anyway, it's pretty frustrating we've reduced our hours because of that, because I can't stay from 5 in the morning to 6 at night. So we now may close at 2, sometimes we close at 1, which is very not, what's the word when you're, what is that? Yeah, it's not ideal for anybody. I do pay over minimum wage, so, and I'm happy to do so. Our employees are exhausted from the mask mandate, and I have a reputation, so I have heard lately, about my take on being a mask person. And hi. We uphold it, and we'll do that because there's people out there who don't know that they're sick, or they are sick, or there's people who can get sick. I'm getting to the point where it's just a battle every single day. There's always some kind of issue of major contention from that. You want to put this debacle in across the street. We have no parking in town as it is, except for the places that people don't really know. We have a skate park. We have pickleball people who want pickleball. Why can't we do something like that? I don't want to step on the toes of Sarzotti Park. I'm just talking about, why can't we think of something for these kids to do besides, we know there's nature, we know there's everything like that, but we also know there's a lot of other garbage that goes on. Where's this water coming from for these 200 rooms? Where is the parking going to be? Underground? Am I hearing that we're having it underground? Is that my time? Yes. Okay. State park traffic. Don't come to conclusions? Oh my God. Why don't we think of not doing this and do something different?
Thank you. Linda Taylor, and after her will be Bianca Rowe.
Hi, nice to see everybody, and I want to thank you for your years of volunteer service as board members. Having been a board member myself for 12 years, I do know how much work you have done to get this process going. The endless meetings, the site visits, the discussions with prospective people who might do this project, attorneys, visits with attorneys, closed sessions, open sessions. I remember that because we tried to do the same kind of thing in 2008, and when, of course, the economy tanked, we couldn't do it. So hours and hours and hours of meetings, which I don't think people here understand, went into this discussion to create this project. I'm in favor of this project. I know that the hotel is a big contentious issue, but I realize that the board has made this decision because it's what's financially the most viable for the district. The district has been having financial problems ever since I was on the board. And partly we've got declining enrollment. Houses are much too expensive for families to live here any longer. And it's making it very difficult for people to have children to keep their kids in school, in public school anyway. And for years and years, I mean, when I was first on the board, there were 130 students at Summit School. And we had, when I was teaching at Nordoff, we had at one point 1,200 students at Nordoff. So it gives everybody an idea of how much the enrollment has declined. I know that you guys have had all these lengthy discussions and these planning meetings, et cetera. And I know that it's really important that a hotel actually might even be a benefit. There are a lot of small rentals on individual properties that may have been rental apartments for low-income people at some point that are now used for vacation rentals outside the city limits, you know, because the Ojai district encompasses a lot of area besides the Ojai, the city limits. Perhaps some of those would become available for renting now. The city has not done anything to provide housing, any kind of apartment buildings for members who need low-income housing. The city has also not provided any parking lots. And you can look around this. I've lived here for 43 years. The city has not built a single parking lot in that time. And I think that's really a tragedy. And it's something that the community should be really upset about. Not you guys being, you know, you guys are doing your job. They're not doing their job. So anyway, I hope that you come to some resolution and that if there's any way that I can help, I'll be very glad to. So thank you very much.
Bianca, before you begin, I would like to remind the audience that there is a requirement that you remain masked, that if you're going to remove your mask, we will not be able to continue with the meeting. So please keep your masks on. If you don't want to wear a mask, you can watch live from home. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you so much for having us. My name's Bianca Rowe. I have a 2,000 square foot retail space on Main Street. It was the assumption that because we would benefit from a hotel that we would be in support of this development, and that is absolutely 100% not the case. I'm here to bring this back to the beginning. We have absolutely no idea who this development team are. So as a community, we've seen broad stroke presentation. Everybody's up in arms about a 200-room hotel. We're having a conversation about maybe negotiating that off the table. But my question this evening is, who are we negotiating with? Who is this development company? I personally was approached by one of the members, Christine, on social media. They have used my home and my business in presentations without my approval. Okay, as a business on Main Street, leveraging us in any element of support for this is absolutely an abomination. So you've gone through a vetting process. When do we get to see it? Who are they? Because so far, Christine Overacre does dot paintings, and Brad has Playgroup, which is a holding page, and none of us know, have they ever built anything? Do they keep a budget? Where is the money coming from? How long is this thing going to take? I am not delusional when it comes to the fact that the school district needs help. But who are you in bed with? Because none of us know. And every single time we ask them for credentials, and let me be really clear, Instagram, social media, Facebook, it doesn't matter what you think of it. We have been contacted by them directly because they want our support. And as soon as we ask for credentials, the line goes dead. So I'm asking you, who are they? When do we get to learn who you're in bed with? When do we get to learn? Have they ever even built a hotel? Have they done residences? Have they done parks and recreation? Where is their money coming from? Can they keep a budget? Who in the world are you signing up to develop the most beautiful piece of real estate in our town that will change the face of Ojai for the rest of our lives? Thank you. Good night.
I'm sorry, I'm probably going to mispronounce this. Lachelle Farrar. And after that will be Caroline McDonald.
Hello, can you hear me through my mask?
Yes.
Okay. I'm a little bit taller. My name is Lachelle Farrar. I am a part of the Farrar family, Coach Farrar and all the Farrars. Go Rangers. I was born and raised here, kindergarten, graduated in the millennial class of 2000. And this school district and this town is who I am through and through. My cousins were my teachers. My aunts, my uncles worked in this office. I love this town. I love the schools. I love the teachers. With that being said, it seems like this project is being widely rejected by the community. It sounds like everybody is against it. And maybe there were missteps where the jack popped out of the box before we were ready and we can't get it back in. But I think at this point in time, we just need to wipe it clean and we need to start again. I agree with everything Bianca just said about this developer. Sorry, I talk fast. And I just want to say, as someone that is in this profession as a designer and knowing architects and landscape designers and other developers in this town, everyone is in agreement that this is rolling over to city planning that will affect the future of this community for years and years to come. And I don't think that you want to be responsible for the people that destroyed the lives of the people in this small town. And it seems like you're trying to do something that's going to be better, but the people that are involved with planning and buildings and developers are telling you in their professions, and it's not in your wheelhouse to know how to develop buildings or how to do city planning. So it seems like it's a little outside of the school district's, something that you guys should know how to do. And everyone that does know how to do it is saying it's a bad idea. So my opinion to you, our elected board members, thank you for listening to me. Please, 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 please end this conversation. Terminate this. Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline McDonald. If you have a sign, would you mind just holding it lower so that people behind you can see and hear? And after Caroline will be Trevor Court.
Hi, my name's Caroline. I have lived in Ojai for almost 20 years. I graduated from Nordoff in 2020 and actually watched the other meeting from my dorm room at UCSD. And I'm just here to really ask you not to build a hotel on that property. You know, tourism here, I'm sure this has been reiterated a lot, is just unsustainable. And this Ojai is really unrecognizable from how it once was, which is, you know, positive and negative, but it's starting to feel like not home, not a hometown, and not a community anymore. And I think that like we have a really positive opportunity in front of us to create something to kind of rebuild an opportunity that rebuild a community that's been lost to tourism, because it feels like what we have now is a town of vacation homes and a town of resorts. But the point of people wanting to visit this town is because of the community and because of, you know, the beauty we have here. And so I think we want to focus on preserving that for all of us. And considering the Oaks is also in development right now, I think a second hotel just might not be the best idea. But I grew up here and there was not a lot to do for kids. And even though it might not be the most financially viable option. I do think we have like a cool opportunity to make something for young people in this town. We already have the skate park there. It already is an educational center. And I know that a technical school was thrown around. That might be an amazing thing to do. But yeah, right now I'm here just to converse with my community and really say that we can work together to build something really special and important. And I just don't think a hotel is it. Thank you.
Trevor Quirk, and I'm sorry, Trevor, and then Larry, my glasses on, Steingold, sorry.
Good evening. Thank you very much for being here. I know all of you watched the City Planning Commission meeting, and at the City Planning Commission meeting, the first thing I did is I handed one of the planning commissioners a petition that was signed at that time by about 2,000 people. As of now, there's been 2,800 plus people who have signed a petition asking you to please not develop this site into a 200-room hotel, a 3-story parking garage, and 63-unit multifamily housing. We don't want it. The task that you gave to this developer, it was the wrong task. It truly was. You heard your lawyer stand up and say, at the time, you gave the job to the developer to come up and maximize find the highest and best use of the property. But what you forgot to do was to consider the community's interests. And so it's true. And I've heard you folks tell me, well, we've had a couple different 7-Eleven committee meetings. That's all true. But the community wasn't engaged at that time. They are now. So there's a path forward. You could have had this topic on the agenda tonight. You chose not to. Here's what you do. Put it on the agenda for January. Let the ERN expire. There's a reason Brad is walking up and down the aisles trying to talk to people. The developer is nervous. They're going to lose out on millions of dollars that they were standing to gain at the community's expense. Let the ERN expire. Put together a group of people like Vaughn Montgomery, who's got great ideas. Sit them down and come up with variables that then you can ask a developer and go to an RFP process and say, hey guys, we have new tasks. Your job isn't to come up with the highest and best use. Nobody wants a hotel, you know that. Your job is to come up with A, B, C, and D, whatever the folks want for the community. Then this is your path forward. After you put together that process, then you can select a new developer. Maybe it's SBS, probably not. No offense, it's not. Maybe it's someone else. But then you can balance what's in the community's best interest and what's in the school board's best interest. And then maybe you have a chance with the city council. But as of now, this project's dead. You could have put it on the agenda. You should have just killed it tonight. So do it in January, please. We'll see you then. Thank you.
Larry Steingold, and then Sean Cruiser.
Thank you very much. You should get a lot of credit for doing what you do. Because obviously not a lot of people want to do it. It takes a lot of work and time. I've been here 4.5 years. This project, I saw it. I could see the temperature rising. I've done it in business. I've been in real estate brokerage. But the one thing that really surprises me is the takeaways on this handout. No hotel. Okay, don't know. Strong desire for community. These are takeaways, things that they discovered. Strong desire for community involvement through the development process. Surprise. Concerns over water, golly. Traffic, no kidding. An historical component. Alternate development ideas. Somebody fell off the rails. This was the takeaway. This should be at the front. This should be the mantra for everything in this community. Involve us. We live here. This is our home. This is your homes. I mean, you have an agenda. Your agenda is the school to help educate our children to do things we can't do. We get that. Schools are always without money. There's never enough money. Number of students, I don't know. I mean, look, maybe try something different. Maybe let the teachers run the school and the administrators do something else. I don't know. But do something. But this isn't right. This is not a takeaway. This is your mantra. You want to be here for 50 years. These are your kids you're educating. You don't want them to have a destroyed town. The consequences are horrendous. This is a big project. Maybe the developer has some change of ideas. I don't even know why it saw the light of day. He didn't know about the first meeting. How can he do his dog and pony show and everything else to sell it if he doesn't know about it? He didn't know about this, and he's getting thrown under the bus. So give him an opportunity, deal in good faith. I don't know when his agreement is up. I have no idea. But if he has a month, he's got a month to produce. There are enough people here who can give him ideas. Affordable housing, a small boutique hotel, office space, whatever, community space, free stuff. But give him an opportunity. I mean, if he's got the horsepower and he made your vetting process and he's working through your broker, let him have a chance to put together a deal. Because the property has to get developed. Oh, and by the way, where'd the $250,000 come from? What assessment? Who made that assessment? Was it the same guy? 3 months later, 6 months later, it jumped 450 grand? How did that happen? I don't know. But I mean, that was in the speech, in the topics conversation. Anyway, thank you very much. Please, if we're going to develop the property, but why are you picking the hotel? That's the developer's job. You have an RFP, that's great. He responded, you signed it, he's got a year, whatever it is. He comes up with a project, you go, great, present it. If it falls, it falls. But don't get me in the real estate.
So correction, the original 250 was from 2018. So it was 3 years ago. So, Sean, was that Sean? Sean Cruiser?
Hi, thank you so much for being here and for letting me have my turn at the mic. This project just needs to be shelved. And I'm going to say something really unpopular, but half of our schools, or most of our schools, are half empty, and we have to consolidate the schools. People say it's only a couple $100,000 we'll save, but it's a couple $100,000 that we must save. We are in a dying district, and the school district needs to focus on education. People move to districts because they have great education. People aren't coming to Ojai because of our wonderful education system. We've got wonderful private schools. So we need to find out what will make families choose our public education if they can afford private, and give it to them if we want to stay alive. This project needs to be shelved. We need to first be financially responsible and let the chips fall where they may, and then move forward to something that is environmentally sustainable. A hotel is not. And I'm really sorry that it got this far, but I spoke at the time of the 7-Eleven committee saying that that downtown property is the last chance and it should not be squandered. First, we need to make responsible choices as adults. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to be closing down the public comment section and bringing this to the board for some responses. And I would like to just comment on the highest and best use, just a little definition of that. It doesn't mean you have to go with the highest. It's combined with best use. So there might be something really expensive that you can put there, but it's not the best use. So those two have to go together. And also to respond to someone's comment about forgetting the community in there. And I really do want to express, and I appreciate the last speaker who said she was at the 7-Eleven committee meeting. So I understand that we all are busy and we have lives and we miss stuff that's going on, but I don't think it's fair to say we have forgotten the community when we have been doing public meetings about this for many years. So I appreciate those who recognize that. I also appreciate how civil tonight has been. I really appreciate hearing from people and just great comments and hearing from graduates from our schools. It's really wonderful. So I appreciate that. I don't know if anyone else wants to make a comment.
I'll make a quick comment. I want to agree with you, Jane, about the impression that we haven't had public engagement on this. And I just want to say that we had a 7-Eleven committee who said, please don't close our schools with the district office, and we listened. And then a second 7-Eleven committee said, please don't close our schools, look at the district office property, and we listened. We went through this process because we were asked to by community members to do so. We wanted public comment on this project. So we held a joint meeting at the Boyd Center with the City Council so we could hear feedback, and we listened. And we knew that COVID had changed the calculus in our town and we wanted more public feedback. And so we really broadly advertised the Planning Commission as a way to get public feedback, and we're listening. I just want you guys to know that we really are listening and we really appreciate the public engagement.
I'm not going to make a real long speech, but I did want to say that if you look at the documents that we engaged with this developer, one of the factors that we said needed to be in the plan was that it was consistent with community values. We added that expressly to deal with the fact that we weren't looking to squeeze every single dollar out of it to the sacrifice of our city and our community values. So that's in there. We are still making up our, we're still making up our mind. We're still looking what's been put in front of us. It's been important to us from the very beginning that we not just do profit maximization. That has never been the goal of this board, and we expressly said so. So I think we need to be very clear that we are cognizant of the impact on this city, and we are considering it. Nothing has been decided at this point.
And I'll just add, for those of you who have, seen our public meetings on this subject, we really, as a board, have always insisted that there be, and this is a term that keeps on, or sometimes is brought up, there be off ramps, right? And, at the end of the day, we always recognize that it would come down to, 5 board members deciding, yay or nay. And that's the reality of, an elected board. And I have to say that I had concerns as this project evolved and we sort of on each side sort of felt each other out, so to speak, that the community really hadn't engaged it. And thank God you have. And as we've all said, we're definitely listening. And, we are 5 board members. I've spoken about this in an editorial, but I will only say that that it's your engagement, your involvement. It's really been extremely gratifying, and on both sides, on both sides. And I say that on every subject, on both sides. We want to hear from you. So thank you.
I would just add that I was elected about a year ago. Right? So this vetting process happened before I was on the board, so I wasn't part of it. So I'm learning more about the developer through this year, through this process. And the greatest and best use, I heard that term used, that is legally like our job as board members, as school district employees, is to make sure that we are taking the public's money, our taxpayer money, and doing right by kids. It's a legal definition, right? Like, we have to do right by kids. And, you know, I heard somebody talk about declining enrollment. The entire state of California is in declining enrollment, including Ojai, and it's because it's really expensive to live here in California, you know? But, you know, we're working on it, and we definitely hear you, and we love to get the feedback. Like, even if your opinions are counter, or, you know, we all, I think, feel a little bit differently about this. But it's important that we get your opinions and your interests because you live here, and these are your tax dollars. And we want to respect that. So thank you for coming tonight. We appreciate you guys being here. Thank you.
Thank you. I know there was one or two people that mentioned some, you know, sort of action tonight. There isn't an action. This is a presentation, but the board is still weighing your feedback, weighing our meetings with our consultants, and we will come back when we know what our options are and then be able to discuss with each other what path, how we go forward. So thank you. That is the end of that presentation. We are moving on to our general public comments. If you'll give me just a moment. So just a reminder on the general public comments, that means you are not speaking on the district property. You are not speaking on vaccine mandates or mask mandates. So the first person with a general comment is Richard Byrd, and followed after that by Steve Weed.
Hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Richard Byrd. Kind of hoping for a bigger audience, but I was, for those of you who don't know, I'm a teacher here in the district. I was sitting at my computer yesterday trying to write a very cogent and creative and captivating speech, and then I actually fell asleep for a moment at my desk, and so I gave up. And so I'm just going to kind of go off the top of my head. Each and every day with my kids in my class, I try to emphasize the need for empathy. And taking that into consideration, I'd like to first thank Jake for such a moving and courageous act, getting up here and, you know, speaking with heart and truth and emotion, and it's really powerful to have a colleague like you stand up here and express yourself so honestly. So thank you. On my wall in my classroom is our classroom Bill of Rights. But it's not just a Bill of Rights, it's also a Bill of Responsibilities. And in our great nation, you know, the preamble of the Constitution says, "We the people," does not say "I the person." Far too often lately, I've heard many people espouse their personal rights. And while I respect the foundation of our country here to have individual rights, far too often I feel that we are ignoring our collective responsibilities. And in doing so, I think we undercut the value of the collective and give too much weight to the individual. We can't do this alone, teaching our kids. And in my rather humble opinion, I think that's why in the word community, co comes before the I. Because without all of us, none of us can survive individually. So I just like to take a moment and acknowledge the need for all of us to maybe use our breathing tool. For those of you in elementary school who know our toolbox, breathing tool is probably one of the most important and fundamental tools that we have in our emotional toolbox. Just take a moment and breathe. And for me right now, that's through a mask, but we do it. And just kind of reflect upon our collective responsibility that we have to each other and to these children. And we all want what's best for them. Me, all of you out there, you up here on stage. The moment we begin to continually recognize that, it leaves us in a stronger place than we were before. So thank you.
Thank you, Steve. You're up next, and then followed by Kevin McKinney.
Members, staff, and community. So I feel, is this better?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel a lot like Richard. It's like what? Like the main show is over and the rest of the audience is. That is good. So I just want to introduce myself to those of you.
Steve, I think it's better if you talk into the mic and people can see you at home. No, just face us rather than the crowd.
It's difficult for me. I'm just a performer. I just want to piggyback on what Richard said, some of the other people. You know, as by way of introduction, me and my family have been in the Valley for 11 years now. And one of the first crazy things I did was to run for school board, and I've been following the board for a long time. I guarantee you that the board 12 years ago would not have listened like this board listens. I guarantee that. And I appreciate other people recognizing that. The first time that I came to any sort of a community meeting in this area, in this very building, was for a 7-Eleven committee meeting. And the engagement then was wonderful. And when the city first decided to grant historic designation to parts of the Chaparral property, I said, what? Nobody in this community is going to do anything crazy because of you, okay? And I'm really thankful that this board listens like they do. And if anybody's watching this, you should be really happy with this board, okay? This community is always responding when there's something of critical value, and it will continue to be that way. So that was just off the cuff. I do want to say two things in addition to that. First of all, everybody recognizes that these issues are important, but I'd like you to consider that in the midst of this, we have our own concerns about COVID, about our livelihoods, about our health, about a lot of things. And I've said to many people off the cuff that the whole damn world has PTSD right now. Everybody's stressed, right? And so, as Richard said, we kind of have to breathe into it, right? This is indeed a novel virus. These are times like no others. And from my own perspective, I could talk ad nauseum about the own challenges that I and my family have had. But you just have to breathe through it. There is no other option. So I encourage you to take care of yourself. It's really important, not only for yourself, but also for dialogues like this.
Thank you. Kevin McKinney.
Hello, everyone. So I kind of had something prepared, but after hearing a few speakers like Jake tonight and Richard and empathizing and understanding a little bit more about what it is to be on the board, what it is to be a teacher in Ojai Unified School District, and just the times that we're in, I just want everybody to know that there's so many problems that we're having. And yes, breathing will help, but educating ourselves, truly educating ourselves about what is happening in the world right now is crucial if we're going to get through this, or how we get through this rather, because we're all going to get through it, but how we get through it. And so when I talk about this, I'm talking about the information streams and where our information is coming from, who is telling us their experiences, their professionality in dealing with things like COVID. And I understand that this has affected everybody. And when it comes down to it, we look at our health agencies to do what's right and to protect us. That's what we've become accustomed to believing in the situation. But when we have some of the best medical schools, some of the best research facilities, some of the best doctors and scientists in the world looking at the situation and not coming up yet with any viable early treatment protocol. Currently, the early treatment protocol is go home, take Tylenol, and if your symptoms get worse and you can't breathe, come to the hospital. At the hospital, as mentioned earlier, the survival rate for a ventilator is less than 10%. So we're being misled. There are numerous doctors out there, the COVID frontline care workers, critical care workers, who have come up with protocols. But the bureaucracies in our health agencies are handicapping them. And this handicap is coming from corruption. There's no other way to put it. These bureaucrats and our politicians are controlled by the pharmaceutical companies who are making a killing off of this vaccine. And this vaccine does not exist. It does not come out with emergency use authorization if there is a viable early treatment protocol. When I was thinking of addressing tonight and talking about sharing ideas and information, I really wanted to come out here and focus on ending the division. But most importantly, I wanted to connect with you guys on the board and connect with the rest of the community to end that division. So I'm going to stick around the rest of the evening. And at the end, I would like to formally introduce myself to each and every one of you, anybody else, and start the conversation, start the discourse, and start to share real information that's available now today that can change lives today. So thank you guys for your time.
Thank you. Moment here, make sure I'm. Okay, we are not having any student council discussions this evening. We've already done 7.3. 7.4 is our board member reports. Is there anyone wishing to share? 7.5 is our superintendent's report. I would just like to remind everyone who's inside the room here to please wear your masks.
Thank you. So I'll just hold our stuff on the mic. So I have a few updates for you. It should be fairly quick tonight. I want to go through some of the positive things that are happening in the district. Since the last time the board met, we had an exciting event at the Soho Community Classroom. We had almost 20 different individuals from the community come into the middle school and share their topics. They got to choose whatever they were passionate about. And it was well received by our students. And we look forward to doing it again. This is actually a program we had tried to start my first year here, and then COVID happened and it got a little bit derailed. So it was great to see some of the things that we had planned 3 years ago coming back and getting to kind of return somewhat to normal. We also, speaking of returning to normal, had a very exciting weekend full of performing arts over the last couple of weeks, actually. We had our Matilah drama program is up and running this year in kind of a new capacity. And we're excited to see some plays happening here. We have Nordoff Strings doing their performances, symphonic band and choir, as well as Nordoff Theater Arts and the Nordoff Dance Concert. We also have been returning to our outdoor learning programming. So we have here our Chaparral High School CTE horticulture program, just went on a field trip. We at San Antonio have lots of students who are doing what we would call citizen science out in the yard. Matilah is working with some demonstration gardens, and then Food for Thought has ramped up again their garden club and their programs with each of the school gardens. And I'll talk to you in a later slide about how we're working to further develop that partnership. We also had our Catalina Island Marine Institute, our CME Institute. This was very exciting because, as you know, this has been canceled for COVID. And so it was great to be able to return to CME once again with our students. So Topa went, and our other schools are scheduled to go throughout the rest of the school year. We also went down to San Diego, and our dance program received the CSBA Golden Bell Award, which is very prestigious. And a lot of work. Shelley and Rebecca were both in attendance. Shelley reminded me that almost 3 years ago now, or I guess it might have been 2 years ago, we went to CSBA and I said, I really think we should win a Golden Bell, which I forgot saying. And then she reminded me as we were sitting in the ceremony, here we are with winning our Golden Bell. So that was great. And congratulations to all the hard work that's gone into the dance program that made that a worthy award. We also had a lot of holiday celebrations going on throughout the district with different craft fairs. At Topa Topa, you may have heard the power was out today. Actually, the power was out yesterday. It was quite cold, and so we did not return to school today with no power. It just came back on about an hour ago. And so the craft fair will go on. It was delayed today, but it will be going on tomorrow morning, and it should be warm and cozy for all of our students and staff at school that day. We also, this week, have been doing our Breaking Down the Walls at Matilah Middle School. I heard we were talking a little bit when speakers about empathy. And so this is a program that is designed to help our middle school kids develop empathy, think about their impact on others, which is part of the developmental phase that middle school kids are going through. So this program is designed especially for them. So every student in Matilah was able to participate in small group workshops over the last 3 days around empathy and breaking down the walls. We also have our first group of teachers, elementary teachers, that are certified in GATE, Gifted and Talented Education. So we're very excited to have this group participating in that. Again, something that was in progress and derailed a little bit by COVID, but we were able to pick that back up. You may recognize one of our speakers in this photo. And so we're excited because these folks will be able to help train other folks as we continue this work in the district with the goal of every elementary teacher having GATE certification. I'm going to try again a video. Sometimes this works. Not yet, but hoping it'll work. This is a video we, at a prior meeting, I mentioned that we are doing superintendent's councils with students where we meet quarterly or more frequently if possible. And so this is a little video of our high school time together. Hold on one second. Kind of. I need these videos. There's a teacher at heart. We spend some time. What are the negatives act or whatever? Like, do they like put you on the spot and like tell you to do stuff? Well, not anymore.
I felt like I had a say and I felt empowered a little bit more because there's some things that you need.
We'll post it online, you can see it, but basically what we do is we take students and we're starting on going through our vision as a district and asking them what we do well, and where we can improve. What you'll hear some of the students talking about is some specific things on campus that they think we can pay a little more attention to, and some of the things that they really enjoy and they want us to keep doing or do more of. So it's a great opportunity for students to participate and give feedback, and we look forward to having those become frequently again. I look forward to showing you a video someday that works.
Can I just say that one little picture with the students with the positive comment there, and it said community support, and that's thrilling to think of the students.
Yeah, that did come up. So next, just an update on our parent university. This is new to us this year. We're very excited. We have had our second monthly training for parents. They're open to everyone. We send it out on Parent Square and in the Monday Minute. So we had nonviolent communication and some feedback that went well for the people who participated or watched the video later. And then in January, we're looking forward to safe social media because that's a topic that is in every school at all times. And we're looking forward to partnering with parents on how to make that safe for students, and then also conflict resolution strategies. We also have a program called WeTip that is new to us, where parents and students or anyone in the community can go onto our website. There's a little pop-up that where you can report on WeTip anonymously, and we get those tips if it's something that could be imminently dangerous to students. That actually also goes to the police department, and we work with them to ensure that our campus is safe. We have a couple of grants that we have either received or we're working on. So we received a strong workforce grant of nearly $600,000 for a digital media academy revamp at Nordhoff High School. The very competitive grants, and the amount of money that we got for the size of our district was quite impressive. We also just applied yesterday for the National School Lunch Program for equipment. So if we are successful, we'll get some new equipment that we need, which will be money that we don't have to spend. And then we are in process with the USDA Farm to School grant in partnership with Food for Thought. We meet every Sunday for a few hours, and we're working on an application for up to $100,000 to expand a lot of things, but including farm in Topa Topa and expanding the growing program at Summit. We're very excited about that. But also very competitive, so it's a lot of work. Then finally, our favorite part, the standing ovations. We have two this month, one at Topa Topa for Carmen Perez, our instructional assistant, who's been working very hard over the time. As Chuck mentioned, we have had some classes where we have substitutes, and so for a variety of reasons, our instructional aides are really holding those programs closely and really making sure that we're serving students, and so we're appreciative of that. And then also for Dave Munson for being always present and always. Here's my report.
Say thank you on behalf of the district, because I know those grants don't just magically fall out of the air. And they're a
Thank
lot
you. I
of
was
work,
going to
so
say that.
thank you.
I believe it is Tiffany that is writing these grants that we are receiving. So thank you.
We're very grateful for your sacrifice of many weekends to get us those grades. They're amazing.
We'll move on to the consent calendar. Do I have a motion to approve? All those in favor? Michael?
Aye.
Rebecca? Shelley?
Aye.
Kevin?
Yes.
Jane? Aye. That passes 5-0. Yes, it is 7 o'clock. We will come back at 7.
Like 02. I mean.
Well, now I have 7:03, so we'll take a 5-minute break. Yeah.
Take a break in the Zoom meeting. I'm like, get out of the way, move.
I gotta go. I should probably rest before I run for my report. That's probably what we do. Thank you. It came to my attention over the break that I missed two speakers who wanted to make general comments. Oh, that's not general, that's 8.5. Sorry, one person who missed general comments. So I'm going to let that person speak now. Chris Wallen. Sorry, I missed you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for letting me speak. And I guess I checked the wrong box. I was prepared to speak on the earlier project. So I will pivot and just talk more broadly and make some assumptions and some asks. It's apparent to me that, well, first of all, I'm Chris Wallen, and I have two kids at San Antonio Elementary and proud OUSD contributor, supporter, and stakeholder. And I'm aware that a majority of the board, or a portion of the board, were not around when Andy Cantwell awarded the RFP. So I get that you've inherited sort of this chaparral project. And I think what's apparent here is that perhaps in that original RFP, they outsourced community engagement. And what I'm hearing from you tonight is that you recognize that we can't outsource community engagement. It's got to come from within. It's got to come from within. And we all showed up earlier, and you know, the developer got us here to this point. And you know, with any kind of assimilation, we show up, we listen, we serve, we collaborate, and then we broadcast or present. That's how we win support, and that's how the community goes forward together. And as we know, Ojai is a unique, special community, and we deserve a place at the table. So that's where we can't outsource that, and that's what's been wrong. And so going forward, I think I want to also just state that the community is only as good as the public school district. And that's just true everywhere. And I want to voice my support for what you guys are doing. It may not feel like you've got the support of the community. That is just a loud minority that you've endured over the last few weeks and months, because they were provoked by what was now a 200-room hotel. Before then, yes, the 7-Eleven, there was no real specifics about what that was. And so that's what that is that now that's being revealed. And that's why the community outcry. And so that's what we're dealing with. But tonight, it's a beautiful night of civic discourse. I'm really proud of our community that we showed up. And the heart is out. We are just trying to build the best community forward. And it's on that note that I urge you all to be a leader in Ojai. OUSD has such an opportunity to recalibrate your mission around resiliency and regeneration, because this town is vulnerable. We do not let a good crisis go to waste. And the Thomas Fire came and went, and we're really no more prepared now than we were 4 years ago, 4.5 years ago. And I applaud you for bond measure J and K and some of those initiatives, but some of the other suggestions of technical school around regeneration and affordable housing. Affordable employee housing. Imagine if a portion of OUSD workers actually lived on site.
I'm sorry, I'm going to have to cut you off.
Yeah, that's fine. I appreciate it. Thank you all for what you do.
Thank you. Okay, 8.2.1 is our vaccine mandate resolution. I think the resolution was included on our public release of the agenda. So I do have some public comments on that, which I will call forward. Excuse me, give me just a second to organize the paper. I also recognize a couple of you are wishing to speak on 2 items, so I think I'll probably call you towards the end so that you can speak on both unless you prefer to come up 2 times. So first is Sky Byrne and followed by Lynn Herben Street. Are you still here?
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. At last month's meeting, I asked this board about joining the 22 other school districts in California who had resolved not to impose a state vaccine mandate on their children. And I'm here to ask the same thing today. There are many parents in this community who are waiting for our board to take this brave but necessary step to protect our children. We don't want exemptions. We want the freedom to make our own medical decisions for our children. After all, when we're talking about an experimental medical product utilizing brand new gene-based technology whose clinical trials are not yet complete, with the highest adverse event rate of any injection in history for a disease that our children are statistically at 0 risk of, it should be opt-in, not opt-out. Most of the parents I know will pull their children out of the district rather than utilize an exemption. And regardless, we stand here today not just for our own children, but for all of OUSD's children. Most parents don't want to inject their children with an experimental medical product with undisclosed ingredients. If they wanted to do it, they've done it by now. So if a school vaccine mandate is introduced, it will force many parents who didn't want to inject their children to do so out of desperation and intimidation, which is of course the whole point of a mandate, right? Who cares that it obliterates informed consent? Many parents either won't know about exemptions or won't feel brave enough to utilize them. So no, those of us who know about them won't utilize them either, because we care deeply about our community and the children of this community. And so we stand up for them, and we will continue to prepare ourselves to remove our children from the district if a mandate is introduced, and to help other parents do the same if need be. Believe me, that's not the path we want to take. What we really want is to feel and know that you put our children's well-being first, physical, psychological, emotional, and spiritual. Please take the big step and promise this community that you will protect our children from a harmful vaccine mandate. Thank you all so much.
Thank you. Lynn, are you here? And then followed by Tara Blasco.
Good evening. Thank you for letting me speak. I have a granddaughter, 7-year-old. She goes to the Valley Oaks School. And I'm concerned about the mandatory vaccines. Pick up where Sky and Kevin left off. I've jotted down a few facts here. Pharmaceutical companies have paid over $35 billion in criminal fines over the past 20 years. In 2009, Pfizer paid $2.3 billion in civil and criminal fines. The $1.3 billion criminal fine was the largest in US history at the time. In 2011, Merck paid $7 billion settlement for knowingly selling the drug Vioxx that killed between 100,000 and 500,000 people. Theirs has been tracking vaccine adverse events for 31 years. That's a vaccine adverse event reporting system on CDC website. The average annual number of deaths reported to theirs for all 72 approved vaccines combined is about 282. That's about 4 deaths per vaccine per year. As of December 3rd, 19,886 deaths following the COVID vaccination have been reported to theirs. Therefore, in less than 1 year, the number of deaths reported to theirs following COVID-19 vaccination is almost 5,000 times higher than the average annual rate of all other vaccines. And yet, no one at the CDC or the FDA seems concerned. There's no safety monitoring board, no public safety briefings, nothing. In fact, anyone trying to raise this issue of vaccine-related deaths will likely be censored or attacked as a deranged anti-vaxxer. In addition to deaths, there's reports that 102,857 people have been hospitalized, 32,644 permanently disabled. There have been 3,230 miscarriages following the COVID vaccination, 16,918 cases of myocarditis or pericarditis, mostly in healthy young males. 20% of these cases will die within 1 year. 50% will die within 5 years. A CDC-funded study by the Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare found that less than 1% of actual vaccine adverse events get reported to VAERS. The efficacy of COVID vaccines dropped significantly in a matter of months. CDC has found that most cases, Omicron cases in the United States, are in fully vaccinated people. According to the UK vaccine surveillance reports, the official reports since August, 80% of COVID-19 deaths have been fully vaccinated people.
Lynn, I'm sorry, you'll have to finish up. That was your 3 minutes.
All right, thank you. I will just finish by asking you to please do due diligence on this. I recommend this book by Robert F. Kennedy. It's a #1 seller on Amazon. It's on the New York Times bestseller list. It has over 2,000 citations to government documentation, peer-reviewed scientific articles about the vaccines. I'm happy to buy this for anybody on the board that would like a copy.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for your service.
Up was Tara Glasgow and then Steve Weed. Okay, Steve, are you still here? Would you speak again? You have them on.
Sure, that's fine. Good evening. I introduced myself earlier. My family and I have been in the Valley for 11 years, and my oldest son, Gabriel, graduated last spring. I support exceptions for there's 3 types of exceptions in this proposal. I support exceptions for medical reasons. One of my nephews has a medical condition that his family traces to the MMR vaccine. Every person is different, and medicine is not a one-size-fits-all. I know that to be true because I might not be here if I'd followed all of the doctor recommendations to the T. However, I believe that parents need to show either medical history or a medical condition to get this exemption. I support exemptions for religious beliefs. I was very close to my great aunt Polly. She practiced a religion, and I mean every day, that did not believe in doctors. She broke her arm at about 74 and did not seek medical attention. My family respected her wishes, and finally she let a doctor set the fracture. Her broken bone was not a threat to anyone else. Not being vaccinated might be. But I'm willing to concede this religious exception because I think that the exceptions will be rare. Families should be allowed to adopt a religion. Families should not be allowed to adopt a religion for the purpose of avoiding the vaccine. Polly wouldn't approve. I disagree with the exception though for personal beliefs. Many younger children will be vaccinated by the summer of 2022, which will be the earliest date that the mandate will be in effect. If there are a few adverse reactions, I expect more parents will choose to vaccinate their kids. In addition, epidemiologists believe that the COVID vaccine will become a permanent requirement for school-aged children. Parents will have to make the tough decision at some point. If they receive a personal exemption now, what's going to happen when the vaccine is a national mandate? The biggest concern that I have with this exception boils down to who makes the rules. Every child is guaranteed a public education, but there are some caveats. For example, Johnny can't bring his new Boy Scout knife to show his classmates because it could be perceived as a weapon. Sally can't use her allergy inhaler at school because it's a drug. Not everyone agrees with these rules, but they are followed. There are no exceptions. So parents asking for a personal exception, it sounds like it's sending the wrong message to me. Children learn by watching their parents and other adults. So I recommend that you remove the personal exception, personal belief exception from this document. The other two I support. Again, thank you for listening to everyone and to me.
Thank you. And Jackie Young, I think, wanted to speak on this item as well. Do you want to talk just one or both of them right now on both? Okay.
The other people. Hi, my name is Jackie Young. I am a parent. I don't have a professional background in epidemiology or as a pediatrician, anything like that. So I'm basing my research off of the documents that I've received, through certain sources that I've checked and stuff like that. But also through the same sources that you get it. I'm speaking today on the vaccine and the vaccine. I'm really trying, I'm asking you as the board to represent us in a way, just like I had asked for this to be on the agenda. So we can formally have an open discussion. I know that right now, according to Tiffany's superintendent report in the last meetings, that it isn't authorized by the FDA or the CDC. Therefore, there's just the emergency use authorization. It isn't actually on the schedule for it is vaccines that do not are not fully authorized by the FDA. So state officials have said that July would be the earliest date that you would expect this vaccine mandate to be in place. Earlier this week, the Los Angeles Unified School District suspended their vaccine mandate. So there is a possibility for us to do that as well. There's certain steps we would have to take. I mean, I know that Kevin comes from an attorney background. I think Michael also comes from an attorney background. So you gentlemen are familiar with maybe the steps it could take for you to be protected in a sense where you can remove us from being mandated for this vaccine or even the mask mandate. With the mask mandate, I know it's difficult, especially with probably funding. I don't know if it is connected or not. And with more so, my concern is children in sports and them having to wear masks and breathing the same oxygen. I mean, you run a tennis academy, so you know that basically wearing a mask hinders the amount of oxygen that a child is breathing, especially when they're on the court and they're taking deep breaths. It's probably not the best for them. So I think it would be, I really would like it to be changed where we can have more freedom with these masks. If there are people that do choose to wear them, that's perfectly fine. That's their choice. But there are people that don't have to wear them. It's not a law. So there really is no violation other than that you're just asking us to do it and you're asking our children to do it just to comply. Sorry. I'm just, another thing, Tiffany recently sent an email to Devin Seamaster in regards to these mandates. She said that her hands are tied. I'm passing the buck, but I think that the board does have the authority to be able to choose and vote to remove our district from these mandates. And I just encourage that you try to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. That's our public comments on that item. It's now the board's opportunity to discuss the resolution or any other response. Yeah.
I'll just say, since it was just mentioned that I'm a lawyer, I'm really not aware of any real opportunities that we have in the district to work from the regulations as I understand them that provide that there are exceptions, and I believe we will indeed provide the exceptions that available. But beyond that, I really am not aware of opportunity to opt out of this. And I know a number of you have sent examples of other school districts taking symbolic action, but that symbolic action only. It doesn't affect the legal status. In my view, one person, but I believe that our resolution is as accommodating as we're legally allowed to be. And I'm glad that we are, but I think that's as much as we can do. Jane, did you hear that?
The board's deliberation right now. So go ahead, Rebecca.
So I understand with the vaccines and, people are very scared. I totally get it. I also have an 11-year-old child. I understand this. And the people weigh on either side of this. Right now, I don't understand why we're trying to do a resolution right now, because the governor's orders will trump whatever we do. So they have already said, come July 1st, the vaccine mandate will come into effect in California, and they expect that it'll roll out gradually, starting with high school kids and then going down to the littles. But whatever exemptions are written into the law are the exemptions we're going to have to follow. So while this is a nice symbolic offer, it doesn't hold any legal weight because it truly is up to the government. I don't understand why we're trying to. Because right now there isn't a vaccine mandate yet, right? So why would we pass an exemption for something that's not mandated?
Okay, so I agree, there is no, in my opinion, it's a bad policy to answer a question that hasn't been asked yet. And so nothing is in front of us in terms of a mandate for a vaccine. We don't specifically know how it will manifest. And so as a lawyer, it's very difficult for me to consider going against legal mandates, which I believe that the state and the county public health, et cetera, have the legal authority to do. So I'm generally not in favor of picking and choosing the laws that I want to follow. And so, I would need to see what mandate has been proposed to us before I can say I'm in favor of it or not in favor of it, but I still believe it would be a lawful mandate. This resolution, I think, is an attempt by the board to encourage the governor to include the personal belief exemption, which I think is a sufficient solution for people who have a personal belief against the vaccine. I think folks are able to, if and when this happens and that exemption exists, you're able to ask for that exemption for your own personal belief. I don't think you should be dictating it for other people. So if other people feel that they want to comply with that mandate and send their kids to school and they get the vaccine, then they get to do that. If we have an alternate path for people who have a personal belief against it, and I'm in favor of this resolution encouraging that, I think that is sufficient. I note that people have said there's less than 30 districts in the state who have made these symbolic resolutions, but I also know that there are almost 1,000 districts in the state.
So it's not something that the whole state is turning over. So I guess that's a long way of saying I can support this resolution because I would encourage the governor to include all three exemptions. And that's really all I'm prepared to make a vote on tonight, because there is nothing specific else in front of us to talk about from the governor.
Did you want to say anything, Shelley? Who is speaking? Okay, no, I don't seem to have yours. Oh, maybe it's stuck under here. Yep, there it is. Oh, it just said mandates, so that's why I thought you, okay. Okay, sure, come on up, and I would like to thank you for you bringing your medical exemption with you. So I did want to let those know who are here masked. She has a medical exemption to be here without a mask. They have not produced theirs, so if they're willing to do that, then we can accommodate.
So this is just for the vaccine, in regards to the vaccine mandate that we were speaking on. And then I did want to reiterate that I want to speak on the mask mandates as well. First, in the public health order, this is a little off topic, but not really. In the public health order discussing the mask mandates, it does say a list of exemptions. I had it pulled up, and anyways, you guys can look it up, or you already know, but it does say in the exemptions that if you have a mental condition, medical condition, if you're, under 2 years old, that nowhere does it state that you have to provide proof. So I did want to mention that. Or if it obstructs your breathing. So I did want to say that. And as far as the vaccines, I work in a doctor's office, and we see hundreds of autistic kids that suffered after getting vaccinated from the vaccines prior to this experimental shot. And when SB 276 passed, I'm sure you guys are well aware, but what happens, because we get parents calling every day saying, please exempt my kid, please exempt my kid, they have autism, or they have heart condition, or you name it. And what happens is it automatically gets rubber stamped no, even if no doctors are writing exemptions. They're allowed 5 a year is what SB 276 says, but what happens is it automatically gets rubber stamped no. It has to go through an appeals process, and then you have to prove that your child has anaphylactic shock to each of those vaccines, or is in a coma and basically dying. So it's like not until they have already been injured, then it would get exempt medically. So it's kind of past the point. So that's how that works. And I think our fear here is that that's how this will work, because Senator Pan, Lowe, and Weiner, and the other one I can't remember, had already stated that they will be finding the loophole to remove personal belief exemptions come January. So I might be crazy, but I guess we'll see in January how that goes down. So I did want to just speak on that portion, and that's it for that. Thank you.
Also, looking online, I saw that the FDA approved Pfizer for children ages 5 to 11 on October 29th. Right. So, and also, let's see, Governor Newsom announced that COVID-19 will be required for all persons in public or private schools, just like the vaccines for measles, mumps, rubella. So we're just waiting to hear how the law will come out, which at the earliest will probably be in July. So again, I just don't understand why we would raise an exemption for something that's not currently a mandate.
My understanding of it is that it's on the agenda because we did have a member of the public ask that we create it. There is a resolution which we could choose to pass, choose not to pass, or make changes to, and then pass or not pass. So that's why it's here.
Yeah, and I think what it's a resolution.
Can you use your mic, Kevin?
Sorry.
Sorry.
It's a resolution encouraging the governor to continue the exemptions that currently exist. So it's effectively a request that the status quo continue, which for the most part seems, although I know many in the audience disagree, but I think for the most part, it seems to have been working pretty well in the district.
I wanted to make a comment. Someone mentioned Los Angeles Unified postponing their mandate. So their mandate, I believe, did not include a personal exemption. Right. Well, that's for employees, but for students. So that's not something that, again, we have heard or we are considering. And actually, we wouldn't be considering any kind of a mandate. We're only doing what the state would be requiring. So we received some written comments and actually a copy of I think it was Apple Valley resolution. There are members who have spoken who are asking us to go further on this resolution to not just support personal exemptions, but to say that we will not follow a mandate if it is put forward by the governor or the legislature. So I think, I don't know if any of you would like to discuss that, but I'm going to share my personal feeling is that I am not willing to do that as a board member to challenge the state in its mandate. I don't think that is a position that I would want to take or that is proper for me to take.
I agree with you. I don't think, well, first of all, the state is the one that gives us 85% of our funding afterwards. Accurate. And we are one of the largest, if not the largest employer in Ojai. Second largest. So we would be putting all that funding at risk, which means, that could have a plethora of outcomes, right? And the bottom line is we're trying to keep our faculty and our students safe. And we are required as board members to follow the law that is given to us from the state of California.
So I actually do, just not to make sure there's not a confusion, there has been some comments from the public about our mask mandates being tied to funding, and that's actually not, there's no funding that says if you allow people to be unmasked, you're going to lose your funding. But there actually is no, you can't just say, well, we've decided, we'll talk about that later, but there's not funding tied to that because there's actually not the opportunity to just choose not to. So just wanted to clear that up.
I'll just say that I agree. I'm very comfortable with this resolution. I think it's appropriate to follow the mandate that we've been given and ask the governor to honor the exemptions that have been suggested. To my knowledge, right now, there is, this is legislation that will be coming down. This isn't in act yet, and therefore the exemptions are still being discussed at the state level. And I think it's appropriate for our board to say, to let the governor know that we are in favor of exemptions. So right now, I understand that it's a new vaccine. There's a lot of people are concerned about longevity research, and it seems appropriate to offer those exemptions at this time.
So if we offer these exemptions and then the state comes down and says no, where are we?
We're not offering exemption. The resolution is to encourage the governor to maintain a personal exemption. Therefore, be it resolved, determined and ordered by the board to request Governor Newsom and other state officials maintain the current allowance for vaccine mandate exemptions, including exemptions for family with sincerely held religious or personal beliefs that conflict with the mandate. That's the only thing. So we're not actually passing any kind of vaccine mandate ourselves. We're just requesting that the governor and other state officials maintain a personal exemption when and if they pass the vaccine mandate, which, as I think Michael said, there is no mandate right now. There's nothing that has passed the legislature, and it might be at that point something to discuss, but.
And although this is not typical for us, so I guess we all assume that what we would then do is send it to Sacramento, right? I mean, that's the whole point.
What I wanted to share is that the state rulemaking is in process for the mandate, and so this could be entered into the public record around the state rulemaking process. And so that's, I think, what we're happening to. Of course, send this to all of the public officials, but as the rulemaking process is being discussed, your resolution, you choose to pass it, whatever it says, would be entered into the rulemaking process with your beliefs.
I'm prepared to make a motion to approve the resolution.
Any other discussion around it? Is there a second? All those in favor, Michael?
Aye.
Rebecca? Shelley? Aye. Kevin?
Yep.
Jane, aye. That passes 4-1. Next, 8.2.2, which is our face covering requirement. Again, this was a member of the public who requested that the board discuss this. We have had comments at past meetings about it, and the board has not had the opportunity to, I think, share their thoughts on it. We did have a comment earlier from our OFT president concerning the masks. And so this will be our opportunity to talk about it. Did you want to do the presentation first or the public comments first? Okay, we'll do the presentation first. That makes sense. I'm sorry, you can't be up here. We will hold and pause the meeting until all members of the public are back. We'll start with the presentation.
So this presentation is not intended to discuss the merits of masks or not masks, but rather to provide the board with information about what would happen or what has been presented to us about what would happen if we were to not follow a mask mandate. So a little bit of background on this as a state directive. This is a letter that came from the CDPH director and state public health officer in August that laid out some of the potential issues that would happen if we failed as a district or as a board to follow the mandatory public health directive. So the first is potentially opening the district up to liability if the refusal to implement the mask requirement caused a staff member to contract COVID-19 or a student. Next is that the public health directive has the force of law and therefore mandatory duty exists for schools to implement the guidance. And I'll talk in a moment about Dr. Levin, Ventura County Public Health, what he said. Next, that certificated individuals, including school administrators, could be subject to referral to Commission on Teacher Credentialing for disciplinary action if we are violating a mandatory legal duty. And finally, the governing board has, per education code, a requirement to cooperate with a local health officer in measures necessary for the prevention and control of communicable diseases. So this is what's contained in the letter. In terms of our local public health, according to Dr. Levin, if an employee, teacher, or otherwise at any school does not wear a mask when they're around even one student, it is a breach of Cal OSHA rules, and they will come to investigate, and they are capable of levying fines. So these are really the fiscal tie. There is not a tie at this time to any state funding for either the mask mandate or for the vaccine mandate, but this is where we would potentially have some fiscal implications either from civil liabilities or from Cal OSHA if we were breaking some kind of ordinance. And then finally, if public health if we had an outbreak in a school, public health could come and close down a class or in some cases the entire school. So really our adherence is to try and keep our schools open for our students because we believe that that is the best way of teaching our students. And so that is a real possibility if there were an outbreak. And then finally, as has already been talked about last week and tonight, we have a memorandum of understanding with both our classified and our certificated employees to say that we will follow the public health directives. So with all of that, I believe I already mentioned the slide about how there isn't really a tie to funding. I hear that, and it's just, we have ESSER 3 money, which is specific to COVID, but it doesn't say you only get this money if you follow directives. There's actually no place where we report to the state that we're following any of these guidelines. It's more if we're not following them and something were to happen, there's a host of consequences that could happen, but there's no place where we report exactly how we're doing in any of these other masks or vaccine mandates at this time. And so there's no recommendation on this one, but it's information for the board should you decide to establish.
We will move to our public comments. I would like to just remind everyone we will have one person speaking at a time. The first person who wanted to speak is August Van Rijsever. Sorry if I'm reading it wrong. And after that would be Justin Hun.
Hi guys, August Van Rijsever. Thank you. I was here in our last meeting and I shared with you all my testimony regarding the life of my father and my son and the effects that the vaccination and the inoculation had on each of them. Therefore, my family, my immediate family, and for the rest of their lives. I didn't get to speak on the exemption, and so I'm briefly going to just share on that. I know you guys already ruled on that. Maybe I shouldn't do that. Okay, we'll just stick with the masks. So, dear Superintendent and School Board Trustees, when does this end? I need you to tell me when you believe we will end restrictions like masks, quarantines, and testing on our children. We're told our kids have to wear masks until they are all vaccinated to keep them from spreading the virus. But now the CDC just admitted that those that have been vaccinated, 1, still get infected, 2, have the same amount of virus as those who are unvaccinated, and 3, can likely transmit the virus as easily as those who are unvaccinated. But the biggest takeaway from this news is not just that we should stop treating vaccinated people different from unvaccinated people, it's that we can finally admit that the virus isn't going away and that the restrictions like masks are pointless. An infection disease report that Johns Hopkins stated, and to what end are we wearing masks for? COVID is not a disease that can be eradicated or limited and will always have cases. The goal was to make it a manageable respiratory illness, and it is in so many places where enough high-risk individuals have been vaccinated. We were told our kids have to wear a mask because they are at risk from COVID, but the data shows their risk is less than far from respiratory viruses like influenza. 1, the CDC estimated 332 children have died from COVID-19 in 18 months. 2, the CDC also estimated 434 children died from influenza during the 12 months between 2019 and 20 flu season, and 600 children died from influenza during 2017 through 18 seasons. More deaths despite a widely administered vaccination and lower case rates. 3, the New York Times found children are about 10 times more likely to die in a car accident than from COVID. 4, the Financial Times found children at less risk from COVID-19, 0.0002% than vaccinated adults. So please explain why we are forcing our children to wear masks, kicking them out of school for weeks, and testing them for dead virus when they have no symptoms to avoid the virus no worse than influenza. We are told they must wear masks to slow the spread of COVID-19, but numerous studies show that schools without masks required for children had case rates just as low or even lower than schools which did not have mask requirements. I just strongly want to remind you that your decision for our children, you will carry with for the rest of your life. There's just so
Thank
many
you. I'm gonna
unknown
have to
things.
cut you off. Your 3 minutes are up.
Yes, ma'am. Just there's so many things that we all need to take a look at and really study. I strongly encourage you to just educate yourselves more, please.
Thank you. And I'm sorry I didn't call on you for the vax. Justin? Okay, thank you. Devin, is your chance again, and okay, that's what I was trying to ask you. So I'll call on you again for this, but first, Devin, did you want to speak again?
I have, before my time starts, I just had something for Kevin. I think said he wasn't sure of anything that how you could go against the legally and lawfully go against community support. Can I get this trip or just put there? Three, two, one, go. Rebecca, you stated as a board, you take our taxpayers' money and legally do right by kids. I am so sorry you guys are being threatened by CDPH. I urge you all to fight for the kids against these threats because that's all they are. Are you guys collecting data on the harm that these overreaching measures have done on the kids? Mental, physical, educational limits, self-harm in kids has gone up 334%. Teen suicide has gone up 50%. I mean, there's more safety risk assessment done on this building than there is with these mandates. None of it is about health. The country is built on democracy. Our First Amendment is to question the governing board and authorities. So that's what we're doing. It's questioning. None of this secrecy stuff and emergency and all that stuff. This has been the first time in history of America where if you speak outside the popular vote and narrative, we immediately get stripped of our Bill of Rights. It's happening one by one. Do you know that in 1968, 6% of people had chronic illness, autoimmune, obesity, developmental issues? In 2006, it's 54%. That number continues to rise. We have to ask ourselves why. Only when we put pride, greed, and power aside and really get humble right now will we start paying attention and take action for our future generation? What is the budget you directly received from COVID measures? You guys kind of already answered that, but not clearly. So I would like that information. How can we help to raise funds so that parents have a say in their kids' health again? And they have the option, what is best suitable for their kids? It's not a cookie cutter type situation. At what point do you guys wake up and realize we are not against you and that we are more for you than anyone else? Anyone else giving you these silly orders that we know doesn't add up and it doesn't make sense. Why is it that you can go to a football game with 80,000 people screaming without a mask on, vaxxed or unvaxxed, and I guarantee you they are more of a health threat with underlying conditions, putting them more at risk for infectious disease than any of those beautiful children whose face you say must be covered? Masks are for now. They are not forever, says the director of CDC, Walensky. We have to find a way to be done with it. This is a CDC. And the best way to put the pandemic and mask in the rearview mirror is to lean into the current strategies we know work. Walensky said, in a world where almost everyone was vaccinated, COVID-19 cases would still happen. I love humans so much that I've been willing the last several months to put in countless hours doing research. I love you guys so much. I really do. I love each and every one of you. I am pro-human. I am not anti-anything. I am pro-human, pro-life, pro-kids, pro-education, pro-America. When we all start loving our
Can you
freedoms.
finish up, Devin? Your 3 minutes.
Yeah,
left.
last sentence. When we all start loving our freedoms more than the fear we have of germs, then and only then we will triumph. Divided, we will fall.
Sure, put it right there. We'll get it. I'm sure. Did you want to take your moment?
Okay, I'm ready. So nearly all bodies of government have attempted to enforce measures of control to control the virus, but no government can declare success. The research indicates that mask mandates, lockdowns, and school closures have no discernible impact of the virus trajectories. Tiffany, I'm sorry to do this to you. I appreciate everything you've done for our district in terms of education and everything like that, but I am going to pick apart an email that you did send. So I apologize in advance. Tiffany recently sent an email to Devin Seamester in regards to these mandates, masking and vaccine. Apparently, she says her hands are tied as she passes the buck, stating the authority over vaccine, masks, and other mandates reside at the county and state level. She is speaking for the board when she states that. She has no authority over the board of the Ojai Unified School District. In fact, the board members are the only ones who actually have the authority to vote on this subject matter and represent us as a community. Tiffany Morris, the superintendent of the school district, also states that she does not have the authority to violate the public health order, but that is a flat out lie. She and the board have the authority to represent our district and a county at a state level. This is why you are elected in your position, not to just tell us that we have to comply, but to assist with the needs of our children and work with the community. I have reviewed the California Education Code, health and safety codes, California health laws. I looked up and down all the codes to find where the place in the power hands, where they place power in the hands of each district. This is why I mentioned the Ojai Unified School District could suspend their vaccine mandate. This is why other counties can lift their mask restrictions. So I'm concerned when there is no regard to the issue that we are discussing today, as mentioned in past meetings. Tiffany stated that there is no mandate in place at the time, therefore there is no action to take. That was according to the vaccine. And then in fact, you are the ones who actually have the authority to vote and represent us. Let's see, a few questions. Let's see, when Tiffany was stating this, she's neglecting the area concern. She chooses to dismiss the effort that we have put into having this placed on a school board agenda. We are in the process of a petition to show you how many parents are against the mandates of the masking. So you can see an actual number, so you can hold that in your hands and see how many people are against the mask mandates. The only thing I also want to state is to her, the superintendent thing that she did. The letter also states, because I did read the letter that that person of the health department sent. The letter also states that under this provision, schools retain flexibility to tailor the protocols for enforcing mask requirements to their local circumstances. So you can actually tailor the masking. Yes, you have opened up the time where our children can have education outside, and they are able to remove their mask. They're able to play on the playground without a mask, more so than other schools in Ventura County, which is very nice. But there can be more done. Like again, with the kids that are in our sports, you can also say children can remove masks if they are in athletics, just so that they can breathe. So I'm asking you to add more provisions to it if you cannot just say that you can remove the mask mandate.
I'd just like to clarify that indoor sports actually we have opted for the test instead of mask for indoor sports where that is allowed.
Thank you. I was going to miss that. And also, I want to respond to the suspend the vaccine mandate. We do not have a vaccine mandate, so we don't need to vote to suspend it. Okay, that's my public comments. Now the board to discuss. Okay.
I appreciate, I got a legal, a document that references the California Department of Public Health, and I'll look at that. It's still, even looking at it closely, it looks like the issue maybe in this article is how a school district enforces the mandate, but there still is a mandate. But, needless to say, no school district wants to not educate kids. No school district wants parents to pull their kids out of their district. So it's a real balance. But when you hear from somebody like Jake Hansen, who's an incredibly committed teacher, who gave you all of his credentials on that with respect to everything he did during COVID in some of the worst conditions, if you listen to his life's experience, you can certainly understand why people who are working in the district would like there to be a mask mandate. And by the way, if you look at, everyone talks about data, et cetera, the most renowned organizations in American pediatrics recommend the masks because they say that's the easiest, less intrusive way to be able to allow kids to stay in school. And also there's a whole issue with respect to quarantine when someone does have COVID. If people have been wearing masks, you don't all of a sudden have to kick 10 kids out of school altogether, at least in person, obviously. But from my perspective, I have kids too. I have 2 kids in the district right now. I've got a daughter who plays sports, and by the way, they are testing and they're able to play without their masks. It seems to me the masks are the least intrusive, best way that we can sort of all, be able to kind of get through this. That's my take. I know many of you have a strong disagreement, but I was elected, so maybe they'll kick me out.
I would add that no matter how I feel about masks, we still have to follow the law. So there was the CDPH health guidelines are something that we are required to follow. On July 12th, 2021, they did an update for the guidance on all K-12 schools, which continued the universal masking requirements, but allowed the outdoor, like for us to let kids take their masks off outdoors. So let it be on what I'm reading.
So can we just have one person speaking up here, please? Thank you, Devin.
It says, throughout the state, the implementation and requirement, which was subsequently adopted and endorsed by leading health authorities, including the Centers for Disease Control, the CDC, and the American Academy of Pediatrics. This scientific consensus is unequivocal. Unfortunately, some elected officials and school leaders have expressed their intent to violate the law and risk their students' safety by failing to enforce the universal mask requirement for indoor school settings. To be clear, failure to enforce the mask requirement breaches not only the legal duty, but also the first and foremost duty of every school leader to protect children. And how I feel about masking or unmasking or anything else is irrelevant, because these are the laws that we have to follow as school leaders.
Charlene or Michael?
Yeah, I'm satisfied and persuaded of the legality of the mandates and of our requirement to follow them. I am not inclined to, as I said before, start picking and choosing. Because once we get off of that, I might choose something that y'all don't like, right? Because once we start picking and choosing what we want to follow, there's no guarantee that we're going to pick and choose what you want, right? And so I understand that there are multiple opinions about this. There's conflicting science. My opinion is I have to balance the potential harms and go where I think the greatest protection is. And I believe A, it's in masking, and B, it's in following the legal mandates that we're elected and that we set an example for our students that we follow. I'm not inclined to start setting an example for our students that I get to pick and choose the rules that I want to follow, and the ones I don't like, I don't have to follow. And so I have no inclination to make an exception to the county requirements or the state requirements at this point. I would encourage the school, which I know the district is doing, to see how much we can get kids outside and how much we can give them circumstances where we can go on mask. But I would, I'm not inclined to step away from the legal requirement for indoor masks.
I just want to say that I chose to run for school board because of my deep care for children and all children in our valley and all children. And that's why I'm sitting up here, and that's why I do this work with such passion. And it has become to me very abundantly clear that the best place for our kids is in the classroom. And the way right now we are able to keep kids in classrooms and keep our schools open is through masks. And that to me is the, when I think about the decisions that I'm making up here, it's about student achievement and student well-being. And we have seen the increase in mental wellness issues with students. And this COVID process has taken its toll. I totally agree with that. And it's also been clear to me that when we have the supports in the schools and have children accessing those supports in schools, that's what we can do to benefit those kids. And so to keep the doors open, to keep kids in classrooms, I am in favor of the mandate that we have.
You. I would like to, somebody mentioned that COVID-19 is a manageable respiratory illness in children. But I would just like to point out a couple of items from the Los Angeles Times on in California, younger Latinos are dying of COVID-19 at much higher rates than their white and Asian counterparts. Younger Black people are also dying at higher rates, but the disparity is starkest for Latinos. And the families of the Latino children are especially at risk. So I believe that allowing our children to go unmasked is a horrible possibility. Jake expressed that concern from a year ago. And I would also like to read that the move comes as coronavirus cases rates in California have risen almost 50% in the last 2.5 weeks. And COVID-19 hospitalizations are up nearly 15%. County health officials across the state say they suspect they may be seeing the start of a winter jump in coronavirus cases. So I think that I believe in masks. I believe that our staff are providing wonderful opportunities for our kids to go outside and have opportunities, breaks. But I also don't believe, I've talked to many families who they don't even talk about it to their kids. It's just, you know, you wear hot one's clothes, cold. You live in the Midwest, you wear something over your face all the time when you're playing outside in the snow. So I find those, you know, that as well, that I don't believe that it's a big struggle to wear a mask. But that's my personal opinion. I think the presentation that we saw about our requirements, and I keep hearing this, it's not a law, it's a mandate. A mandate is absolutely the same thing for our public body, which means we must follow it. And I appreciate the families that have come out and shared. We have heard you 4 meetings in a row. This is the first chance for you to hear from us. And I think what you're hearing is that this board will not be making a change to the mask mandate in any time. I'm going to move on to 8.2.3. And that is our certification of school board representative to Ventura County. This is, I think I served on it once. Michael, you served on it once. Maybe Shelley, you served on it once. Yeah. I actually meant to text you, Rebecca, to see if you would be interested. It's a once a year meeting. I don't know if Shelley, if you want to serve again. Did you even need it all? Yeah. Thank you. I would like to nominate Rebecca. Do I have a second? All those in favor, Michael, Rebecca, Shelley, Kevin, Jane, aye. That passes 5-0. Thank you, Rebecca. Now that you're the clerk. But it's beforehand, so you don't even have to stay for the meeting. Delegate assembly nomination. Shelley is speaking in nomination. We would love to have you, well, I would love to have you represent us, others. So I'll make a motion to approve you as delegate. All those in favor, Michael, Rebecca, Shelley, Kevin? Jane, aye. That passes 5-0. I know it feels weird to vote for yourself, huh? Approval. Right, that's true. You know what? No, sorry, just checking. 8.2.5, approval of meeting dates for 2022. This has been updated. I think the calendar that originally went out was not correct. The dates now are the second Tuesday of the month. Wednesday. Boy, I'm really going back in time. And I would actually, since I'm going back in time, I would like to recommend that we not schedule a July meeting. We didn't used to have July meetings, and I'd like to really just talk about removing it. Not that we can't call a special meeting in July, but I just feel like, this year in particular, there were so many issues with what staff we need for a meeting and who's available for a meeting. And I don't know that, with COVID, we added the July meeting. And just a suggestion that we don't have a regular meeting scheduled in July because we didn't used to. And then if we want to add one, we can.
Also to note, there are 2 meetings in June. There's one at the beginning and one at the end of the month, and that has to do with the fact that that's the month in which you adopt the budget, and typically don't have that done by the very beginning of June. And so we have, and also the second week of June is usually graduation. And so we try to schedule around graduation. So there's one early and then one later in the month. If we happen to have the budget done by the first week of June, then we wouldn't meet the second week, and that could be canceled, but. Right, and we have to do a public hearing. So yeah, so we likely would not have the budget done in May. So the 2 meetings in June make up potentially for that July.
And I believe the LCAP needs those 2 meetings as well.
The one is, I think, June 29th. Yeah.
July, right? Yeah, so I would be in favor of canceling July too. In like if we need it, stuff. We're not.
We've added meetings before.
I'm in favor of it, so I would make a motion to accept the calendar with the removal of the July meeting.
My only hesitation on removing the July meeting is that it typically, in my memory, is when we have had a board retreat to discuss how the board is working, and I think that is an important part of our job, and so I'd like to see that not go.
I would rather that be a special meeting because again, July is a hard time for us as well in terms of family vacation. So I would think we could certainly add, and maybe it's not July, maybe it's
That's
August, or
fine.
maybe it's
Yeah, I don't necessarily
April.
care when it is.
Yeah,
I just
yeah.
don't want to see that disappear.
So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, Michael?
Aye.
Rebecca? Shelley?
Aye.
Kevin?
Yes.
And Jane, aye. That passes 5-0. That's the dates as written with no July meeting. 8.2.6, Office of Public School Construction District Representative. This is before, right? Approving the current superintendent as the district representative. I'll make a motion to approve the action. Is there a second? Thank you, Rebecca. All in favor, Michael?
Aye.
Rebecca?
Aye.
Shelley? Kevin?
Yes.
Jane? Aye. That passes 5-0. Letter of intent to negotiate, 8.3.1 from our CSEA chapter.
This is a public hearing, so if you'd like to open
Oh,
the public
I
hearing.
will open the public, oh, is there a motion to open the public hearing? All those in favor, Michael, Rebecca, Shelley, Kevin,
Yes.
Jane, passes 5-0. Is there anyone who would like to comment? There's no one left in the audience. Is there a motion to close the public hearing? All those in favor, Michael,
Aye.
Rebecca, Shelley, Kevin,
Yes.
Jane, aye. The public meeting is closed 5-0.
I'll move to approve. the letter.
Is that, can we do that yet? Is that, do we have to have, yeah, we don't have to have a second. Okay, there's a motion, and I'm sorry, Rebecca, did you just say second? All those in favor, Michael?
Aye.
Rebecca? Shelley? Kevin?
Yes.
And Jane? Aye, that passes 5-0. We look forward to negotiating. We're going to pause for another 2 minutes. I don't think, David, you need to turn off the computer. with 8.4.1, which is our student achievement and instructional program for our TK through 2. I believe Cheryl is going to talk to us. Dr. Knox. Is my mic on?
Great. Tiffany, you're going to bring up the presentation. So we're bringing to you at your request information about things that are contributing to hopefully improve student achievement outcomes. Nothing in this slideshow, at least I don't believe anything in the slideshow should be new to you, but all of these initiatives that we're doing in TK through 2nd grade have each individually been brought to you as they've come about. And so this presentation is a chance for you to see it as a whole, as far as everything we do in TK through 2nd grade for our students when it comes to academic achievement. I think our first slide just goes over our core curriculum. So you might recall these adoptions coming your way. We have journeys for English language arts. We're using a few different items in math right now. Bridges is our board approved curriculum, but with the pandemic and the need for some better options in distance learning, we had used and are still using some Eureka Math. And we're excited to be just experimenting with some levered units that they're creating right now. They've allowed us to utilize them. So that is also being done here and there in TK through 2nd grade. Just to note, levered in TK through 2nd grade is not, very little is online. It's actually, it's online in the sense that it's presented to kids and the teacher can use online lessons or presentations of the information, but it's mostly a lot of hands-on activities with items in front of them. So the kids are not sitting in front of screens. We have studies weekly for social studies and then science weekly and mystery science. We've been using as we've been transitioning to a permanent adoption. We did start our science pilot 2 years ago, and then the pandemic hit. And so we had to put a hold on it, but we will be finishing up our pilot in elementary for science and hopefully be bringing you some science materials to adopt at the end of this year. So in addition to core curriculum, we have a lot of supplemental supports that we use with students. Lexia learning, you guys might remember we've had this now for, I want to say 5 or 6 years. I was definitely, had to be at least 6 years because I was still the principal of TOPA. Some of you were on the board at that time and we brought the students with computers and they came and sat by you and showed you. It's a literacy program that's really fantastic with pre-K skills all the way to 5th grade. What I love about this program is it can be done at home or in school, but also there's a lot, when kids get stuck on skills, there's a lot of paper material items that can be printed and lessons that the teacher can give in small group to teach skills, and then the kids go back to the computer to pass certain lessons. I also like this because it can be used obviously for intervention, but also for a kid to move ahead. So if we have a 1st grader who's working at a 2nd or 3rd grade level, they can be doing Lexia at that higher level. Sunday system, you guys have heard a lot about. You heard me do a presentation recently or last spring with all of the data. The data is so overwhelming, like we were talking about, it's very hard to put into just a quick overview. But basically, this is our most intense system that we can offer kids. It's research-based and especially research-based for students with dyslexia. So we have this year trained all of our kindergarten teachers in it, which is fantastic. So it can be used whole group in kindergarten as well as small group. So we're starting in kindergarten, and then in 1st and 2nd grade, we use it with students who are falling behind. They get pulled into small groups, usually, sometimes as many as 5 kids, but usually more like 2 or 3 kids per adult. Then we have Dreambox. This is a math online program. It's very engaging. It's used for intervention in our youngest grades, TK through 2nd grade, as one way to offer interventions. Write-in Readers is a special tool that goes with Journeys that allows scaffolding and small group instruction for reteaching that correlates specifically to the stories. So these other supplemental programs are different from Journeys. The Write-in Readers go hand in hand with the core program. but can be done in small group to reteach. They're using all of these a lot of the time, but that's a great question. You know, for a student who's falling far behind, you're looking at more of a intervention like Lexia or Sunday System. Write and Readers is more for that student who's not quite at grade level, but close to grade level, because we're really still able to teach them using the core curriculum, not needing to go back for remediation skills that maybe are 2 or 3 years behind. But a student can be, so when we talk about tiers, like the pyramid, tier 1 is the core program. Tier 2 is students that need a little bit of help, so kind of like Write and Readers. And then tier 3 is more intensive support, which would be something like the Sunday System. But a kid can be in all 3 at the same time. So we can use all of these depending on what the student's needs are. And then small group reteaching of essential standards, you know, as indicated by the PLC work. So you guys have heard a lot about PLC work. Teachers come together every 2 weeks to discuss data and possible interventions. And so it's a constant look at the most essential standards in language arts and math, and reteaching at grade level material. This is what we refer to as acceleration sometimes, is we want students to not just live in those kids who fall behind. We don't want them to just live in those remediation phases only, because then they're always working below grade level. So you want to have it so that they are receiving remediation and catching up in those foundational skills, but at the same time, always getting the core grade level material and reteaching of that grade level material so that they're eventually able to catch up and not always staying behind their peers. Any questions on this slide?
So this is all remediation, and I'm just wondering about our accelerated students.
I think I have a slide specifically on here. So extensions, yes. So as I mentioned before, Lexia can be used for remediation or reteaching of skills, but it also can be used for acceleration. So just the example I mentioned a minute ago. If you have a student who's a first grader reading at 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, it goes all the way up to 5th grade. They can move ahead, and I've seen first graders pass all the way through the 5th grade levels. So sort of graduate the program, which is exciting. Reflex Math is something that we purchased for 2nd through 5th grade. It's a great supplemental math program to help with fluency in addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. But what's nice about it is a tool that can help TK through first graders or even 2nd graders to accelerate, because they can use that if they're high enough in math and start to work through those fluencies and move all the way, you know, like I said, into multiplication and division. So that's something that we sometimes offer our younger students when they are ready for something like that program. Accelerated Reader has been around forever, but it is a wonderful program, and I think that we forget about it a little bit and what it's capable of. All of our libraries have books that are we indicate what accelerated reading level each book is. And so the idea with this is you test a kid in the beginning of the year to get it's a diagnostic test to get a result. It'll give you their independent grade level for reading, but it will also tell you their range. So you might have a 3rd grader and their range is 2.5, which is 2nd grade, 5th month, all the way to 4.1, 4th grade, 1 month. And the research behind Accelerated Reader is you want kids starting off in their lowest reading zone so that they can read independently and passing tests at an 85% level, and then moving up into higher levels of that range. And if they focus in that area with their independent reading, they will really grow in their reading skills. So for example, if you have a kid who's a 4th grader, but reading at a 2nd grade level, independently, you want them doing that work with their accelerated reader books at that 2nd grade level. You still want to give them 4th grade level material, and that's what you do in the core program with a lot of guidance and support, because they can't do it independently, but you still want them to have access, again, so that they don't always stay behind. But what's nice as far as extension goes is the opposite is true also. If you have a 4th grader who's reading at a 6th grade level, and they can be reading in their 6th grade range and moving through their range, taking tests, passing at 85%,
And that, again, the research shows that they will continue to grow in their reading skills if they really focus in that target zone. And there's some points involved in rewards, so it's kind of a fun program for students. And then all of the materials today, and I think this is really important to state because, 10 and even 20 years ago when I was first getting into the world of education, we did not have the kind of tools that we have now that come with the core materials. All core materials that come to us today, they have questions built in and guidance built in for language learners, for students who are, needing remediation, for students who are just a little bit behind, for kids who need extension opportunities. So in the moment, teachers are able to quickly and easily differentiate just using those core materials by just simply saying, okay, you guys can do questions 1 through 3, and hey, I want you to do this, question over here that's in the margin, right? So that happens on the fly all the time in the classroom for extension. Any questions on extensions? Okay. And then, I want to really talk about, I know this is more about academic achievement in this particular presentation, but I think it's really important to make sure that we talk about the social and emotional learning. The toolbox is on here. We heard Richard talk about the breathing tool. There are 12 tools. We're actively using this and have been for 3 years now in all of our elementary schools, as well as restorative practices. And what we hear time and time again is sometimes you have to go slow to go fast. So when our kids are struggling emotionally and they need that time to stop the academics for a second to deal with a conflict they're having with a peer or stress they're under, maybe because of the pandemic or what have you, we do need to take the time to deal with those situations. Otherwise, we're not going to make good academic achievement. And so we recognize that, and that is why it's built into our program day in and day out. And the last piece I wanted to talk about was just the professional development that we're continuing. Obviously, we do a lot with PLC work. We're hopeful to send more teachers to PLC conferences in the near future now that they're resuming. But in the meantime, our principals have been involved in the CAPS network offered by by the county, but by really renowned PLC experts. And so it started 3 years ago with just principals going. And then the second year they brought the principals and 1 teacher went. And now this year, the principal and sometimes in some cases, multiple teachers from a site go. And well, they Zoom quite a bit. So they don't quite go to Camarillo as much as they used to, but they do trainings approximately once a month. And so that team of teachers and principals really are coming back to the sites and really making sure that we do PLC right instead of PLC light, which is a common term that's used because, you can say you're doing PLC work, but if you're just using the term and not really truly understanding the strategies and the methodology behind it, then you won't really do it well. And so we're really trying to make sure that we are analyzing our practices and doing PLC correctly. We also just offered a pretty significant workshop for our teachers at the last 2 professional development days in the concept of universal design for learning, which takes into account that every single student that walks into our classroom has varied abilities. Sometimes we think about students with disabilities and we know we have to scaffold and differentiate for them, but this concept is really not thinking about disabilities so much as varied abilities, which every single student has, right? They have a different way of learning or a different way of accessing their education. And so universal design for learning is a concept, and it comes with strategies to upfront put into your lesson plans multiple ways to access kids at their varied abilities so that they want to be engaged and are more likely to be successful in your lessons. So we've recently done that, and we'll continue to offer that sort of training. And then last, we're working on sending, we have, I think, about 10 elementary teachers that want to do an online course in Daily 5. It's a literacy strategy where you basically have 5 stations and students somewhat choose which ones they want to do first and second. But it also, some of the stations really call for, there's a structure to it where it really allows the student to independently work, even at a very young age like TK. And so it builds that capacity for them to work independently, but also provides opportunity for the teacher to work at one of the tables with a very small group of students at a time for specific skill sets. So we're going to be working on sending teachers to that, I think starting in January. So I think that was my last slide. So any questions?
Question, I just want to say thank you. I am very appreciative of really, at board meetings, it's so easy to focus on the budget and on all the other stuff in it. I am gratified to learn more and more about how we are focusing on student achievement. That's what we're really here to do. So thank you for that. And I am thrilled with so much professional development going on. I'm really happy to see not only is the district providing it, but the teachers are really excited to partake in it.
Yeah, I'm really proud of this work. Everything that you see on these slides have been done since I've been back in Ojai in the last 8 years, first as principal of TOPA and then as assistant superintendent. And I would say this is a really comprehensive approach, and I'm super proud of what we're doing in that remediation phase, but also in that extension phase. We no longer, have one without the other. We always talk about both, and so I'm proud of that work, and I'm super proud of the professional development as well. And I think that is what we are going to talk about next, which is how we can do a lot more professional development with the educator effectiveness plan.
Just wanted to share, first, thank you to Shelley for going to CFBA and coming back and saying we really should be talking about student achievement. And so the goal is to put something around student achievement on every single board agenda. But in addition to that, there's a lot of focus on our test scores, and you've seen them in the newspaper and on social media, and a lot of conversation about test scores are bad and why aren't you doing anything about it? And so I'm hoping that the public will see the work that we're doing and that we are always concerned with student achievement, and we're doing really robust work. It just takes time. We're not able to make these changes overnight. No school district is able to make these changes overnight, but we do have a comprehensive plan for both supporting our struggling learners and our students who are ready to accelerate in every grade level. So we'll be bringing that to you over the course of the next few months at every meeting.
I think we're ready to move on to 8.4.2, which is the Educator Effectiveness Block Grant. Now, we talked about this before. Was it a public?
We had a public hearing prior, and so we have not made any substantive changes aside from a minor correction in the date. And so there's no changes.
Do we want to discuss, or is there a motion?
Yeah.
Were you second? Yes. Okay, that was Rebecca and then Michael seconding. All those in favor, Michael?
Aye.
Rebecca? Shelley? Kevin? Jane? Aye. That passes 5-0. I don't see you down there very much, so I'm like, oh, who's next? No, it's okay. We're moving on to 8.5.1. And this is our Measure J and K projects. I'm going to kind of make you guys go really fast because we've all read what we're supposed to read and we're prepared.
You already had a break.
That's all right.
We were joking. Nothing clears out a room like the bond report. That's all right. There are a lot of exciting projects on that.
So be sure you might have to, I don't know, in terms of Zoom, if you have to lean into the mic a little bit.
I know it's been a long night and there are a lot of good projects. Sure. Yeah.
I do have a public comment for 8.5.3 when we get there, so.
First, are there any questions about the? We have a quick PowerPoint. I know again, it's been a long night. But. Started off just a nice drone shot, courtesy of David Rogers, of the completed, there's a couple more, of the completed Miramani field. OUSD is taking over maintenance of this project now, and it's in our hands.
I also went there on the morning after the rain, while it was still raining, after we got about 4 inches of rain, just to check the drainage. And it did awesome. It was fabulous. So that's all been corrected.
We're going around, and one of the projects, as you saw with this campus, is putting some wall wraps up and painting. This is one of the newest ones we did over at Topa, just adding a little color and a little, I guess, that more than anything to the front entryway.
It looks great. But I just now realized, like, that's the Topa Topas.
Yeah,
Ah!
exactly. This is actually here at this campus as well. This is a project we started during the summer and kind of ran into the painters, and so we had to pull off. Picture on the left is from probably July. One on the right is kind of where we left it. We were grinding off all of the, I don't know how many layers of red paint that were on there over the years. And then the next slide, I think, is the new hallway. And so again, Anchor Concrete did an amazing job, knocked it out for Thanksgiving break, 1 week. Knocked it out, grinded down the whole thing, and we have like an epoxy flake system that is used kind of like we use in the commissary over here in the temporary kitchen when we're building the dining hall. It's approved by health. We did find actually in the last rain, it is a little slick. So Anchor Concrete's going to come back and put some grip on it over winter break, starting actually on Monday. Kind of works out well. Again, it's a system that's used in a lot of kitchens, but obviously our clientele here is slightly different than some of the commercial kitchens. That's been the feedback so far is, you know, between the new paint and now the new flooring, that entry corridor is just so much brighter. This is the Nordhoff Student Services building. This is now, full disclosure, some of that is actually when we were doing the demo, so it didn't look like that. But the colors, kind of the gloominess, ceiling tiles, the paint, flooring, all of that was there. And so we decided to go in and do a refresh in there. Obviously much needed. And this was all handled in-house with our skilled teams.
So this houses now our full center for our mental health technician. So we'll have potential to be our wellness center as we're looking for spaces on campus. So we kind of pre-designed it with the idea of this being a space where students can come and kind of decompress if they need to.
Again, much brighter, new flooring, new paint, new light fixtures, new receptacles, switchblade covers. We filled in some of the holes in the wall. So yeah.
One of the rooms actually had a tapestry covering this big hole in the wall.
Those were given to Mr. Muntz.
Were they?
Yes, I did not discard of those. So. But again, just a couple pictures and brighten it up. And I know we hadn't shown you kind of it's not quite the final product, but this is kind of what the new electrical looks like at Topa. On the left is obviously when they cut out the grade there. And then that's all the new gear. Alan can probably speak to where we're at better. We're kind of waiting for Addison.
Yeah, this has been a little bit of a tag team effort because we need the fencing around the equipment that's been installed for the DSA sign off. STE wants the DSA sign off before they do have a permit fold, but they don't want to schedule the work until we have the DSA sign off. And we're waiting on the fencing, which is, I think it's supposed to come in this next week. So it's been this, back and forth pointing fingers, but it is making progress. All of the secondary gear is done and ready. We're just waiting for SCE to bring us the primary wire and energize it. Then we can do the switch over to the school for the new system.
Just to be clear, this had nothing to do with the power outage at TOPA. We did get a few calls of people who were asking us, but this is not related in any way, and the power was out beyond just TOPA. If we were placed to do the E today, or transfer changes, but not related to this project.
We got a few calls on that ourselves. I think that's it. Nice and short and sweet.
Move us right along to 8.5.2, San Antonio payment. Is there any questions or do I have a motion? All those in favor, Michael?
Aye.
Rebecca? Shelley? Kevin? Jane? Aye. That passes 5-0.
I might just mention that the contractor that won that award is the one that painted this school.
Oh, looks great. 8.5.3, I think before you all speak, is Philip Bagley still here? Okay, come on down. Thank you for your patience.
Hi, Philip Bagley. I just think that the board should hold off on spending this money at this point for the schematic design, at least for a couple of months, based on, it seems like this proposal is changing what the board agreed on the master plan in July, changing the location of the pool. And I also think with the changes that are, at least the proposed development, moving forward, proceeding, this would take moving the location of the pool downtown completely off the table, if it ever is on the table at all. I think also, again, it seems that this 20% of the funds that are be spent overall would be spent at this point when the location hasn't been determined, either at one location on Nordhoff or another. And I don't think it's been properly, if it is that change that's being made based on this, then it seems like that hasn't been properly noticed. So let's see. Yeah, it just seems like the board chose from two options in July, and both of them were located closer to Maricopa, and this one just changed that based on EJHM's recommendation, which was that closer to where the basketball courts are. So I think just before moving forward, that location should be settled and determined in a properly noticed public way. And it doesn't make sense to rush to complete this stage and spend this money if that hasn't been decided yet. Thanks.
Thank you, Philip. And I would like to just point out this, the moving of the pool has not been talked about or discussed. That was just a thought of theirs, just to kind of let us know what they are thinking and that they're thinking about trying to save us money. So you're absolutely right. There's been no decision to move that pool, and that's not being made tonight. What we're talking about is, do we want to engage this particular design group for discussions with the community, with all that, with the pool committee. Well, what they're doing is actually saying no matter, they're going to, instead of basing it on a percentage, and maybe Adam, I should let you guys address this. I don't know. You know more than I do.
They are basing it off of percentage, and what we did, and this is one of the draws of the firm, was that being that obviously for the master plan, the preferred location is out closer to Maricopa Highway. What they did is they came to us and said, this is an option that you guys could look at to potentially save some money. But knowing that the location is still in flux slightly, potentially, why don't we just don't go with the 20% so far? And this will give us the opportunity to meet with the pool committee and the community, towards the community district. And then we can nail down the exact location as well as the design of the pool.
This is what, I know it's 20% of effectively, I guess, for their services.
Essentially.
But what exactly does it mean that the programming and thematic design?
So it's exactly, we will have a full design of the pool, multiple meetings with the pool committee, with internally with us, with the operations team, site administration, and the design of the pool, the location, and schematics of it. So it's a necessary process, no matter who we choose or where we put the pool or what kind of pool we do. And so this lets us engage the firm that we think we want to work with long-term to establish that. We're going to have to do it no matter what pool we choose and what location.
So at the end, is the project shovel ready?
At the end of the 20%? No.
No, I mean, at the end of the whole schematic.
At the end of the schematic and design process, then we will go into geotech, some civil, some structural, all of that. So this gets us, again, basically a complete a design of this and a location.
So I was just going to ask, so it seems to me then what we're doing is then we're having these planning meetings with the expert there instead of making all these divisions like we did previously.
Exactly. We had a similar meetings in the master plan meetings. But again, that was big picture, no real, we had an architectural with A3 there. But this gets us, the architect gets us the aquatic professionals, the aquatic design group, which is their pool consultant in all of these meetings to help us design all of this. And figure out exactly what the best location was. As well as nailing down, again, for instance, the two options. Put it by Maricopa, you put it here, this could save some money, there's some infrastructure savings here, but there was an operational issue to get it closer.
I saw that there were other school districts where they had done pools. Is the money we're talking about consistent with those districts paid?
Yes.
I would generally be willing to support this. But I think to Mr. Bagley's point, hopefully, we kind of had a preview of this with the district property. This is again, this has been the holy grail for this town for a long time. The idea of a really full service aquatic center, and I believe it's still in play that this would be a community asset, right?
Correct.
So I'm impressed with the group that you've got so far. I know you guys are on it as well. You've got Mark Whitman, you've got Coach Britt, you've got other, you've got the YMCA crowd, Sherry Beers, et cetera. So, hopefully this will be like the community will know about it, and everyone who needs to, should be heard from, will be heard from. And then we can, don't worry, decisions have to be made. I'm not suggesting that you're always subordinate to, you can't always please everybody, but it does feel like one of those projects that really is going to be a big deal.
Absolutely.
And that we want to have maximum community buy-in for it.
100%. I can't tell you, I've been going to city council meetings since I was probably 10 with my parents. So I understand. I swam with poor Rick, at the club, at the Lights Club. And so, yeah, it's definitely going to be a community involvement. That's partially why when we did the master plan, we brought in the pool committee as well. And then the idea is to bring in PJHM into the pool committee meetings, which has, Coach Britton, Dave Munson, Rick Gaden, Mark Whitman. I can't remember her name, but she runs the youth program, the youth swim club swim program over at the athletic center. Or
Megan?
Athletic Club. Huh?
Megan?
No. She's a former, I think, Olympic swimmer or run.
Ellen Chevrolet?
So,
Yes.
That guy.
Yes.
Yes, that guy.
Thank you. So,
Megan Schneider.
yes. So we've got it. There's probably, I think, 15 people on the pool committee from the community.
I would love to see us open it up to even more communities. So like when we are talking about the specific design, like have the full committee there, have your architect there, and also do like a push out to, parents and community members, say, hey, you want to talk about this? I'm going to.
I just want to say, like, Adam, when you negotiated this 20% sort of upfront agreement, that was in lieu of going forward saying, you are absolutely our architect, design firm, and we're not committing to that $1 million right now. We're committing to get to a point that is a necessary step, no matter who we use, to get to that point. And there were two options, A and B. A was more expensive. We said, okay, we're going to give you 20% of B, knowing that we may still go back to A, but we're going to give you 20% of a lower number than the higher.
Yeah, they've been extremely flexible thus far. And
You mean A and B options higher in cost? No.
The A option was higher.
Different for.
And if we'd have chosen 20% of A, we'd be coming to you for a higher.
I'll second. Kevin seconds. All those in, or any other discussion? All those in favor? Michael?
Aye.
Rebecca? Shelley? Kevin?
Yes.
Jane? Aye. That passes 5-0. 8.5.4, Matilaha Library refresh. So this is an action item to approve the agreement with EJS Inc. for the refresh of the library.
Presented to the board some ideas in the past. We're still working on things like the number of shelves and furniture and those kind of things, but having just met in the library earlier tonight, you can see that it is in need of some assistance to refresh. So this is really looking at kind of holistically some of the structural things that we need to do to get started so that we can move forward in those next steps. I can show the proposal if you want the schematics, but it was from architectural.
Yes, so I found it.
Yeah.
I think my term was attending as a tailor.
So this is one of those moments where myself as a board member, I go, well, I don't know, but I have to say that the 3 years or however long it's been that we have worked with you, I have just been impressed over and over again of your thoughtfulness, of the way you look for ways to save the district money, to make the best and most out of our bond money. And I know that you interview a lot of people about a lot of different things over these 3 years. So if these are the people that you are recommending to us, I have no reason to doubt your recommendation. So that's all. I mean, I don't know them. I haven't met with them. I haven't been in the group, but I trust you two.
EJS is the one that did the gymnasium, the locker room, and the kitchen.
They've been on the campus for a while.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve. All those in favor, Michael? Rebecca?
Aye.
Shelley?
Aye.
Kevin?
Yep.
Jane? Aye. That passes 5-0. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you for the comment.
We did it. We just didn't discuss it, right? We did the San Antonio opinion.
Yes.
Yes.
That's all right.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Good night. 8.5.5. Hello. Another big item tonight.
Is this on? Hi, everybody. Been a while. Been a long night, so I hope you can hang on a little bit longer for the first interim report. I want to say that this is my first interim report, and I worked with Taiwo on this, and every day I learn more and more, and I'm getting more confident in my position. So I just wanted to share that with you before we jumped into this. So, Tiffany, we can.
Maybe I can start like about introduction.
So tonight, we're going to review the first interim report for the 2021-2022 school year for the school district. The first slide that you're seeing is an overview of the budget reporting system, and my understanding is that all of you are very familiar with this cycle from previous presentations. And as you know, interim reports are required per ed code. So right now, we're in the first interim financial report, and we will have a second interim in March, which will give you an update on the fiscal status of the district as well. The next slide is a visual of where and how our unrestricted funding is spent. Most of our money goes towards salaries and benefits, which makes sense since we have, teachers and staff and serving our students. This slide also gives us the opportunity to look at our budget and how we spend our money in comparison to the national average. And as you can see, we're really close to the national average in the way we spend our funding. I really like this visual because it breaks things down. The next slide gives you the bottom line of where we are as a district. And based on the projections that we have so far, we will end the 2021-2022 school year with a surplus in both our projected undesignated fund balance and our restricted fund balance. The restricted fund balance covers things like our Title I, II, and III, as well as our COVID funds. And while that dollar amount looks big, we have to take into consideration that a lot of that is tied to COVID funds, and it also, we have 3 years to allocate it and spend it. So it's going to be reallocated for those upcoming years as well.
To say, you'll see that there's a significant difference from our projected undesignated ending fund balance that we saw in the adopted budget, and that is because of the increase, the salary enhancement that we had last week. And so that all came out of the undesignated fund balance. We think that that's a significant change there.
That was what I was going to say next, but I'm so glad you jumped in. No, you're fine. So in talking about what we were just the last slide, this is an overview of the COVID funding that we have. And we have allocated most of that. So this just gives you kind of an overview. And then our next slide, actually, we're taking a look at the special education funding. Here you can see an overview of the special education funding we receive, as well as the expenses we have budgeted for and incurred as of the first interim reporting period.
This is showing you that we make significant contributions from the general fund to special education. Special education is one of the areas where we don't have a lot of control over what happens. We have some, and as a district, we have spent the last few years really looking at our practices in special education. But historically, as a district, this has been an area of significant spending for us, but outspending our revenue. And so sometimes we may hear from the community, well, you get the same amount of money as every district, which is not true. Every district actually gets significantly different amounts of funding. And also, what happens to your money? Most of it goes to salaries, as you can tell, but also special education is a significant cost to us that is not funded from the revenue that we receive. It's not adequately funded from the revenue that we receive from both state and local sources.
And our obligation to serve special education students based on their needs, it varies because they're individual education plans for a reason. Next slide you see is the changes in revenue from the adopted budget. And as Tiffany had mentioned before, we did do a salary enhancement, but when you look at LCFF revenue, this year we have benefited as our funding has not been affected based on our ADA because the school district is being held harmless to a loss in K-12 ADA based school funding, so it doesn't disrupt the day-to-day keeping our schools open. this has really been beneficial for us because we are still looking and seeing this year declining enrollment, which is concerning, and we're continuing to monitor that. The area where we are not being held harmless this year is the unduplicated pupil percentage. And in terms of students that we had projected at the adopted budget, we had 1,097 students in those categories. And at first interim, the unduplicated pupil count was 833, which was a significant decrease of 264 students. So that's quite a bit. But we did see, we were able to review a report from December, and the unduplicated count has gone back up to 969, which is still less
Is that
than.
based on those applications, those lunch, free and
Yes.
reduced lunch applications?
Yes.
Which we know we're having trouble with because we're providing free.
At the adopted budget, it was 48.02, and at first interim, it's 43.75.
Prior to COVID, we were at 52%. And so we are struggling, like most districts in the state, with the collection of free and reduced lunch forms because it's hard to convince families to fill out sensitive financial information for a free or reduced lunch when you get a free lunch, regardless of whether you fill out the form or not. So this is where we work in partnership with some of the other services in the district and also the family fund so that we can provide additional incentives to families who may need that. So for example, we just had our holiday gift card distribution through Family Fund. They had their holiday gift card distribution, but you had to fill out that application, the free and reduced lunch application, to be eligible. We had a lovely person in the community who actually donated $10,000 in gift cards to Serendipity Toys, enough for every single free and reduced lunch elementary student in the district, which ended up being a $25 gift certificate, but you had to fill out the form in order to get that. And so we're also looking at our bike giveaways, AP tests, waiving AP exams. So we're trying to find every possible way we can to support those families, in addition to helping support the district by getting those forms turned in.
Brilliant.
Was there also a partnership with the Care Begins? I thought this one. Did you say that and I missed it? I didn't say that. Okay.
We also, staff made hundreds of calls. So we took every family that we knew had filled out a form in the past and called them. And some of them just said, we don't feel like I need to fill out that form anymore. And so we do our best to try and convince them through personal contacts, but it's been a struggle, and we definitely are not at the percentage that we feel is actually reflective of the students in our district who need those supports.
Does make sense that we more than likely didn't decline in the number of families in need at this.
Are you guys doing the phone calls where you're having your staff fill it out over the phone?
So we just went over. That's okay. I don't know if you guys want me to go over each one of the revenues and where we're kind of at with things, or if you're okay with what you see. Yes, in the narrative. So I didn't know if you want me to speak to it or not. And then, as Tiffany said earlier, the changes in expenses from our adopted budget a lot of them come from the salary enhancement that we just gave, and that, that was, we weren't funded, the COLA wasn't funded in the 2021 school year, and we just received it. And so based on our obligation, with our collective bargaining unit, that agreement, we were able to implement the salary enhancement per that agreement. So that's why.
Are the employee benefits increases that commensurate basically with the salary increases?
Yes, it is.
Increase number of staff. So in the adopted budget, if you remember, we know exactly where COVID money was going to be spent. So we had started the budget money 4,000 to 6,000, and now that we hired staff.
And I did want to mention, we also did have that big ticket item of buying a bus, which helps us better serve students. So that was a big ticket item that's on here as well.
Is that a capital outlay? How's that?
Yes. So we're at the end of the report. That happened much quicker than I thought it was going to. I was really anticipating. It must be the stress of the audience that we have out there right now. So based on all the slides that you reviewed, you can see that we have a net increase in the fund balance, which is good. We have the required state mandated district reserves that we need to have. We do have over $2 million in our legally restricted programs, but we have to keep in mind that the majority of those are COVID funds. So based on the current projections, the district will be able to meet its financial obligations through the end of the fiscal year, which is where we want to be. And we know we have a lot to monitor, and we'll have more to update at the second interim, which is why we have these reports throughout the year to make sure that we're responsible and that we're all on the same page of where we are financially as a district.
You did a great job on your first interim report. I would love to see like the 3-year projection at the end of any.
Katrina asked me, should I put in the multi-year projection? And I said, in the first interim, but
I just like to see it because it's always like.
It will be in the second interim, and I can email it all to all of you also if you would like to see it.
I'm just saying for future, I think you did a really good job. And then,
share one more piece about just looking forward in the future. So this year, there are going to be some really significant changes coming between now and when you see second term at the state level. So we have been held harmless now since COVID. And so every district in the state, for the most part, there's a few that have actually is headed for a fiscal cliff, because we are going to actually be funded based on our ADA and our enrollment, which has declined for almost everyone in the state. And so there's a lot of talk at the state level about how to prevent that from happening. And there's a lot of money in this year's state budget, particularly in the Prop 98 guarantee. And so the other thing that happens is that they've been buying down our PERS rate. That actually goes away as well. And so there's lots of discussions at the state level. So I sit on a couple of different state level advocacy groups, and everybody is talking about, is now the time where we can look at how we're funded. So for example, we are funded on ADA, not enrollment. So we're funded on when kids come to school, which is silly because we pay for a teacher whether a kid is in school or not. We have all the same expenses whether a kid is sitting in class. And so there's some groups that are pushing for a change to enrollment-based funding instead of ADA. So, if we have a student and let's say our attendance rate is 96%, we get 96% of the funding for that student, more or less. And so instead, we would get 100% of funding. So as there's a lot of money this year, there's huge political debates about what to do with that money. Do we add it to the base grant? Do we change the funding model from ADA to enrollment? Do we put it in categoricals? So the educator effectiveness grant that you saw earlier, we talked about this, is a categorical. So it doesn't go into the base grant, so we can't use it for salary enhancements or anything like that. And so part of the reason that we actually didn't put our multi-year projections in is because we know that there's going to be some massive changes this year. We just don't know what those will look like. And so when we come back to you in a few months, we'll have a better idea of what that might look like and how that will affect us moving forward.
And can I just ask a quick question about the multi-year? Because I did look at it. Wow, those are intimidating numbers of lots of personnel, but I made the assumption that they were, or part of that is due to the loss of COVID funding and the hiring that we have done. So we knew that was coming. Is that correct?
So some of the stuff going first. Some of the staff that we hired is temporary. So, yeah.
Okay, Kevin, Rebecca, motion, Kevin, second. All those in favor, Kevin? I'm sorry, Michael. Ah, it's late.
The longer hair gentleman too, right?
You men are all the same. Michael?
Aye.
Rebecca? Shelley?
Aye.
Kevin?
Yes.
Jane? Hi, that passes 5-0. Thank you for your hard work. Thank you. We are on our future agenda items, 8.6. Send us an email for a future agenda item. And there's something about wanting to talk about, people are saying, kind of wanting, and we're talking about the budget. We're talking about the district property. How much money are we looking for? How much money are we behind? Where are our problems? Was that something that we wanted to be able to address or another time, or, kind of compare, what our spending is to other districts?
I would say, why don't we wait after the sophomores with meeting, if there's so much hanging in the legislation right now with all that extra money that it's hard for us to predict, like what the money will be for next year. So if we could wait till at least after the governor's proposed budget before we start declaring.
I think though that it was about, we keep hearing from the public in regards to the district office property lease. Well, there is no deficit. Why would they need money? There's no deficit. And it seems hard for the public to understand, is the impression I'm getting, that the deficit is really the low salaries of our staff. That we can't not make ends meet. And we do it by having low salaries. And so I think the question out there in the community is, how much money would we need to bring our salaries up to equivalent with similar districts? Is that what you're getting at, Jane?
Yeah, and I think it's something that certainly, as we look forward to, decisions on the budget might come in important for us to be aware of and the community to be aware of. So
And I wonder if it needs to be an agenda item or if it could be something that could be
superintendent's
just,
report.
in a superintendent's report, or it could be part of the FAQs or something along those lines.
Okay. Any other items? Okay, thank you, everyone. Thank you for those who stayed with us this evening. We'll have a happy holidays. We'll be back in January. The meeting is adjourned.